I woke up drunk and ratty, with a sword I couldn't swing. Blacksmith's son turned noble fighter, ain't that the funniest thing? Took a bite of stolen sausage, dodged the guards, I rode away. Ain't no spaceship, ain't no jetpack, just a horse to save the day. I ain't mining rocks on Saturn, ain't got neon in my sight. Just a real world full of struggle, every battle's a real fight. It's boots on the ground, steel in my hand, living like a knight in a medieval land. No laser beams, no empty space, just grit, just steel, just a sword to your face. From Scalit's down to Sassau's Gate, this here's a story you can't simulate. Ain't no doubt it's tried and true, nothing beats Kingdom Come to. Oh, Baldur's Gate, you set the bar high, but we're riding right beside, with a story deep as Talmberg's walls and a world that feels alive. No soulless towns, no lifeless stars, just a land that bleeds and breathes. I'd take a broken bow string over NPCs like trees. They shut down Concord, ain't that a shame? But they never had a shot in this medieval game. It's boots on the ground, steel in my hand, living like a knight in a medieval land. No laser beams, no empty space, just grit, just steel, just a sword to your face. From Scalit's down to Sassau's Gate, this is a story you can't simulate. Ain't no doubt it's tried and true, nothing beats Kingdom Come to. A guard with coins I stole, woke up in jail with a lump on my skull. I ain't got no map markers or no easy way out, just a long sword, some armor, and a hell of a bow. So when they ask me what's your game of the year, I'll tip my hat and make it clear. Ain't no spaceship, ain't no pew-pew, just history, combat, and a world that feels true. Ain't no doubt it's tried and true, nothing beats Kingdom Come.
This is a song for a Battlefield 6. EA, we're begging, please don't break our hearts with tricks. Grab your controllers, let's hope for the best. We're pleading for a game that stands above the rest. Oh, Battlefield 6, we're counting on you. EA, your last games left us feeling so blue. Battlefield 4 had bugs that made us sigh. Crashes and glitches brought tears to our eyes. Battlefield 2042, oh, what went wrong? No scoreboard, no spirit, it didn't belong. We want epic battles, tanks that roar and boom. Please, EA, don't lock it all behind the paywall's gloom. This is our plea for Battlefield 6. EA, we're begging, don't repeat those old tricks. No pricey loot boxes, no greedy schemes. Give us a game that fulfills our dreams. We want a war that feels alive and grand. Battlefield 6, please take a stand. Gamers are praying from cities to towns. Don't mess this up, EA, don't let us down. We want maps that shine with beauty and flow, not a broken launch that steals the show. Your past few games, they stumbled and fell. Servers that crashed put us through pure hell, but we're holding hope like a spark in the night. Battlefield 6, please make it right. This is our plea for Battlefield 6. EA, we're begging, don't repeat those old tricks. No 20 skins for a rusty old gun. Just let us fight and have some honest fun. We want a war that feels alive and grand. Battlefield 6, please take a stand. Listen, EA, we're down on our knees. No overpriced passes, we're begging you please. We don't need a store for every single thing. Just give us jet squads and that Battlefield ring. The world is watching from streams to the news, hoping this game won't leave us confused. Make it feel alive, let the battles ignite. Battlefield 6, so please get it right. We dream of a game where the servers stay strong, where the hitboxes work and the lag is long gone. No more pre-order now for a shiny new knife. Just give us the chaos that brings war to life. With the frostbite engine, make the visuals glow. Take your time, EA, let the quality show. The world's holding its breath from New York to Nome. Battlefield 6, bring the soldiers back home. This is our plea for Battlefield 6. EA, we're begging, don't repeat those old tricks. No pricey loot boxes, no greedy schemes. Give us a game that fulfills our dreams. We want a war that feels alive and grand. Battlefield 6, please take a stand. Oh, Battlefield 6, we're rooting for you. EA, please don't break our hearts, we're begging you true. From the battlefield's dust to the skies up above, make a game we'll all cherish with joy and with love. One chance, one game, we're pleading today. Don't let hope slip away.
Welcome, everybody. I also hope that EA doesn't screw up Battlefield, but who knows? They probably will in one way or another. That's just how this works. Don't get your hopes up. You can never be disappointed. Am I right? Lego Batman 2. Oh, dude. Unironically, super stoked for Lego Batman. I did not think when I heard they're working on a Lego Batman game that it was gonna go that hard, but man, do it surely do be doing what it does, man. Wowza canowza. Anyway, today we have some fun things to look at, some stupid stuff. Like, for example, this is just a little tidbit for you. I know some of you are gonna be so pumped to see this. Skate has added a new character. Not really new, he's been in previous ones. But there is a bundle to get Isaac Clarke from Dead Space fame in the game. For the low cost of $40 US. What? Like, what? Somebody found this. It is literally cheaper to just buy the entire game he's from. But now you can get him in this other game, just a skin, and you can get some stickers too. That's cool. Some designs on wheels you won't be able to see because they're spinning, and then like a board skin and some, I guess wheels, and $40 right there. Do you start to understand why these companies have a hard time greenlighting like $100 million sequels and stuff? Because you could do that, or you could just sell this for $40. This probably cost them all of like a few grand to put together when you price out like the time the artists took on it. Maybe a few grand, probably not, but maybe you could get there. And they're going to make tens upon tens upon tens of thousands of dollars off of this one skin, if not hundreds of thousands. It's a little insane. It's like, do you remember the WoW mount? There's like the $80 mount. It's the dinosaur. No, 90. World of Warcraft got a $90 dupe of a mount worth $475 around 6 years ago for the MMO's 20th anniversary, and fans reckon Blizzard made at least $15 million off of it. Remember this? Remember this? Oh yeah, and the League of Legends skin, or the other one was the Call of Duty gauntlets. I think it was like King Kong was the event for it. Yeah, you must spend $80 to unlock the King Kong glove in Call of Duty. You needed to spend $80 to get the different components in order to get this gauntlet in the game. $80. $80. It's a little insane, little ridiculous. But this is why they do it, because it just prints money and people will buy it. Like, there is some weird thing, and I personally don't get it, but there is a component of like social status and projection to other people with this stuff. Like, it's weird, but there are certain groups of like specifically younger gamers where it's like flexing a Rolex when you show like all of your crazy skins, or CSGO, you've got that crazy knife skin. It's like a major flex that you have the money to get that. It's like a social status thing. I don't understand it, but that's how these things are built. And that's partially why it's so hard for them to justify putting more effort into stuff, because you could put a lot of effort into sequels or into spin-offs, expansions, whatever you want to call it, or you could just do this, have like a couple unique finishers and have it be a gauntlet skin, and then you make it like combined costing 80. I think you had to get 4 $20 DLC, but it was like $80 total to get this one gauntlet that nowadays I doubt anybody uses it, because it's not the new cool thing. So there's no reason for you to use it. So everybody shifted forward to the Nicki Minaj or whatever other skin. It's just dumb. It's dumb, but this is what the next generation of gamers have been raised on. That's the scary bit. It's like the anecdote I've shared with you guys where I was hanging out at my parents' house a few years back, and my little brother, who at the time was like 12 maybe, he said, oh, let's play some Fortnite. I brought my gaming laptop specifically to play Fortnite with him. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like setting up and everything, and he sees like on the homepage or matchmaking page that it's just my basic like starter character. Like it was just the vanilla skin. And he said, well, Luke, you need to get something other than a noob skin. Otherwise all my friends will make fun of you. And like he low-key was saying, I don't want to play with you if you're going to play with a noob skin, because it like will make me look bad. like he will get made fun of if his older brother is using a noob skin. But that's what these games thrive on. They thrive on that like FOMO mixed with social status, and if you don't put money into it, you're a brokey and stuff like that. It's weird, but that's how it works, man. That's how it works. So I look at a $90 skin and I'm like, okay, that seems insane, but okay. Or the $80 gauntlet, that seems crazy. Spending $40 on a skin for a character when the game itself is half the price, that's just bizarre to me. But there's a whole generation of gamers where that's the standard thing. And it follows into a report from Circana. I guess this is turning into a whole segment. I guess this works. A whole segment. 60%, more than 60% of US game players only buy 2 games or fewer per year, the survey found. And only 4% bought more than 1 game a month when reporting it. This is, of course, coming from Circana, which is headed up by Senior Director Matt Piscatella. He used to post a lot on X or Twitter. Now, I think he just posts on Blue Sky, but his company, Circana, does a bunch of reporting on like the video game industry specifically too. And in it, he did a Q3 survey, Future of Video Game survey, and asked a bunch of questions. And there was a bunch of interesting information found in it. For example, according to the data, 18% of players in the US buy a new video game about once every 6 months, while 12% buy one about once a year. The survey also found out that 33% of players buy a new game less often than once per year, meaning combined 63% of players buy 2 games or fewer per year. This is gamers including Call of Duty, FIFA players, so even like the sports players or the casual players, as some people would call them, they are included in that stat. And this is why a service like a Game Pass is really maybe appealing to certain types of players. But for a lot of people, they're only playing 1 game a year, 2 games a year, or they're playing just live service stuff that's free, which is the other component too. On the other end of the scale, 22% of players buy a new game around once every 3 months, with 10% saying they buy one roughly every month. Just 4% said that they bought more than 1 game a month, which, I mean, there's not a lot of AAA games, so if you're buying mainly AAA stuff, that makes sense. You could even have somebody who's playing like a lot of games every year that would fit into that category. I imagine that the 4% are people that are either building a massive Steam collection, doing something through Humble Bundle or something, or they play shorter like indie games and stuff like that. Yeah, or they fall victim to Steam Steam sales, which are tempting. I'll say that. Commenting on the findings, Piscatella suggests that of those 14% of players who buy only 1 game per month are mainly responsible for the continued trajectory of fully priced games. Quote, hyper enthusiast, price insensitive players are really keeping things going, especially in the non-free to play gaming space. This is maybe another way of saying like whales. Hyper enthusiast, price insensitive players, people who are willing to spend a lot of money on their hobby and also are price insensitive. So if the price goes up to $80 from 70, they still are willing to go along with it because they're willing to spend a lot of money on their hobby. And funnily enough, this is also broadly reflected throughout the entire economy. I was just reading an article actually breaking down retail spending in the economy broadly here in the US. And what's fascinating is like 49% of all retail spending right now is being done by the top like 1% of all earners. So people on the lower income levels are not spending anywhere near as much money. In fact, like McDonald's, for example, is seeing sales crater right now, which is usually a good indication that there's a whole thing, the Big Mac index. It's bigger than this is worth getting into, but there's a lot of indications that people making less money are not spending money, but the people that make a lot of money are still spending a lot of money. And I think it's true in the video game space too, which is that the whales, the people at the top, are still spending a crap ton of money and are willing to throw cash at the hobby because they are largely price insensitive compared to a lot of the other people that are seeing some of the price hikes and are getting turned off by it. According to Circana's Q3 2025 Future of Games report, only 4% of players buy a new game more than once every month, with a third of players not buying any games at all. And this is the other thing. So a full third are saying that they are not buying games like even once a year. They're just not. They're playing free-to-play games, or they bought one game that they were playing for 18 months, 2 years. Maybe like think of Total War players, or like I have a buddy who's super into, or even my brother, super into Hearts of Iron and has been playing that one game for like a decade now. And so not really spending much more than that. And that's what most people are doing. So people like you and me, because a lot of you in chat I think are the same way, are playing a lot of games. A lot of people are not. I see some of you bringing up piracy as a potential answer. Maybe. What I've seen is that piracy in US markets is far less extensive than like publishers would make you think. They would make you think that it's like this epidemic. It really isn't. It's a problem in countries like Russia, for example. But as Gabe Newell, our patron saint, has said before, piracy is traditionally or primarily a service problem. And so piracy is born out of people not being able to get the game in their region. Or it's like because of regulations or whatever, it's super expensive. It's like $300 a copy. And so people then, you know, it's effectively inaccessible. But if you can make it accessible, they will choose the better offering. It's just that piracy has offered them a better product compared to what like Steam was able to do. And so Gabe Newell's perspective, and I would think he knows what he's talking about, is if you provide a better service, a better product to the people who are pirating stuff, they will be willing to engage with that over the piracy, which I think is also true. It's why like the 2-hour demo on Steam is phenomenal. Being able to return a game after 2 hours. A lot of people for a long time were like pirating games to try it before they decided to commit to buying it at full price. Once you offer the return period, it's like, oh yeah, I can just try it. And if I don't like it, I just return it. And if I do love it, I keep it and I get all the updates and all the other stuff. But again, that's sort of separate from this. All this to say, I don't think piracy is like a major component of this. I think it's more that most people are just engaging with smaller and smaller numbers of games. Let's see. Let's see, quote, before replying, note that even seeing this post likely puts you into that hyper enthusiast bucket. So the actions of you and your immediate cohort likely do not match those of the general gaming audience, which I think is important. If you're watching a streamer talk about a video game article on a Wednesday morning, you're probably pretty hardcore, okay? Like, again, it's why I try to always separate myself out and not go like, okay. My bubble is not the universe. Just because something looks like ass to me does not mean it looks like ass to somebody else. Just because I look at a $90 mount skin or an $80 gauntlet in Call of Duty and I think that looks ridiculous, that does not mean that everybody else does. And the reason they do it is because people buy them. You know, that's just how it works. It's Wednesday night. Time zones. Every time I say Wednesday morning or like morning, I'm always like, somebody's gonna be like, well, actually, Luke. I'm glad you guys are here, even on a Wednesday night.
Donated $10
some of you on Thursday morning.
Bright 12 p.m. is not the morning law.
Yeah, for me it's 10:54, which I still count as morning. So I'm sticking with that. I'm sticking with it. Thank you, Jimbo, for the 10. I'll read the other super chats and stuff in just a minute, guys. Sorry. Shocker, Luke's distracted. So I do think that this is true. If you are here, that means you're in this hardcore bucket. The average gamer, the average consumer are the people playing Call of Duty, spending probably hundreds on microtransactions a year on that. Or, you know, $50 a year, whatever, but it's pure profit for them. And it's the people playing games like Candy Crush and all of that. Those are the casual gamers. In a separate post related to his point on hyper enthusiastic price insensitive players, Piscatella suggests that the reason game prices are rising and deluxe editions are becoming more commonplace is because that 14% of players are less likely to worry about the cost of games, meaning most pricing is focused on them, which is absolutely true. A lot of people out there are willing to spend a lot more money than the base starter price. It's also important to remember that a lot of the discourse around video games can end up feeling very, what did the guy from Warner Brothers say? A very online issue. Very online issue. We may rage over like a $70 price point compared to 60 or $80 compared to 70. The average consumer is probably just going to be like, oh, well, things are more expensive now, and just buy it. You know, there's some people, like the hardcore people, might boycott it if they're trying to send a message or something, but I think the average consumer might be more price insensitive towards it. Quote, been talking about this trend for years when it comes to game spending, he wrote. Quote, why are their premium gamepads, $150 collector's editions, more than 150, pro consoles, and general rising prices, because the price insensitive affluent players are the ones doing more of the spending as everyone else shifts more to free to play. Another report published by ComScore last year found that 82% of American video game players had made an in-game purchase in the last 12 months, highlighting that while some players may not necessarily be buying a lot of games, they're still putting money into the industry, albeit through in-game purchases in free-to-play titles. I mentioned to you guys the other day that I met somebody who I found out was a big Assassin's Creed fan, and I was like, oh wow, finally someone I can talk about AC with. Turns out she's like a hardcore fan of AC Valhalla. So I tried my best to be polite. I'm passionate about my dislike of Valhalla, but she very nice. She did have reasons for liking it, but she was just the type of player that I am just the opposite of. She bought Valhalla. She still plays it to this day, has God knows how many hundreds of hours. She does all of the raids. She tries all the new game modes. She goes back through and does the repetitive dynamic content. She buys all the new cosmetics. Like, she is the dream player for Ubisoft. But she's what I would consider to be a more casual gamer. She's just really into Assassin's Creed, really loves Valhalla, has been playing it for like 5 years at this point, and spent who knows how much money on that game. And it was very interesting from my perspective, because I was like, I found one of you. I've never met someone like you before, but I knew that they were out there, a lot of them, which is why Valhalla made $1 billion for Ubisoft. I knew they were out there. I'd never gotten to talk to somebody extensively about it, and it was very, very interesting. But it was partially for her, she was in really deep. She had spent a lot of money on the game, put so many hours into it, that she kind of has the sunk cost fallacy. She's like, I don't want to move to a new game because then I will have lost all of the stuff I did in this game, which is also how a lot of people treat it. And it was also, it became part of her routine. She's like, oh, I play AC Valhalla while I watch, what was the show? It was a show I had heard of, but I've not watched. Was it Walking Dead? It was one of those shows that's been going on forever and has I think Walking Dead technically ended, but it has 35 seasons or something. It was something like that, where it was just that's her routine. She gets home from whatever, and then she turns on the show and puts in an hour or two into the game and then goes to bed. That's just what she does. And that's how I think a lot of people treat this. But some people it's Call of Duty, for other people it's Fortnite, for other people it's, God forbid, Roblox or whatever. That's just how they do it. And I think that that's the vast majority of people who are spending money on this stuff, are people like that, or people sitting on the bus playing on the Switch or something like that. It's certainly a huge, huge component of the industry, which is why for us it's important to maintain a broader perspective, to remember, this is hard for me to say, it's not all about me. Just because I look at this stuff and I think it's insane does not mean that other people feel the same way. So I thought that was very, very interesting, but it just furthers the idea that this is where the industry is shifting. It's shifting more and more towards free to play and towards these live service, constantly updated and remonetized offerings that are built in a way to keep players playing them and engage with them perpetually. That's just how it's going to continue. Which, shifting forward into our next topic, so I'll end this segment there. I don't know how you end that segment, Jacob. Maybe just but that's all from me on this topic. To the next one. I don't know. Figure out what you're going to do there. But that's why I think it's all the more insane that we actually got leaks on the pricing info for Marathon. We actually got it. We got it, fam. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. The pricing info and launch details for Marathon have leaked online. A data miner has found details on the pricing, season pass, and even launch weapons. This was a post on social media by a guy named Colony Deeks, who said that it will launch with 2 different editions and will be a premium price title, with the base version costing $40, which of course people have expected for a while, but they also will have a deluxe edition for around $60. The deluxe edition, they say, will include more skins for players and possibly more. There's also a pre-order bonus that includes a Destiny ship, Ghost, and Sparrow, along with the weapon skin. Lastly, the deluxe edition will give players, quote, around $30-ish of season pass tokens, though they're unclear on what those will be for. In addition to the game itself, Bungie is planning to release season pass for the game that will have will be cosmetic only and cost around $10. And then they have a list of all of the weapons that are expected to be in the game as well. The premium price point, like, this is just something that they are committed to. They have decided that they're going to price it at a premium price point. And I think it goes back to Helldivers. I really think, like, every time PlayStation considers doing anything live service related, they point back to Helldivers and say, well, we were able to do it in Helldivers and it worked out. And that's true. But I think the reason why you're pointing to Helldivers is because it was an exceptional release. But that's the key word. Like, it was exceptional. It was an exception to the rule. The rule in 2025 is that premium price live service games are going to struggle more than free-to-play ones. Like, they just do. There's so many hurdles to get people into your game to begin with, because you're not just trying to win over, especially in a game like this, you're not just trying to win over one player, you're trying to win over 3. You're trying to win over their friend group, right? So if they want me to play Marathon, I have to convince Jacob and Ben or like Michael and Corey. I have to convince them to play the game with me. And if it's $40 a pop, that's going to be tough, because chances are not all of us are price insensitive enthusiast gamers, right? It's tough. It's not impossible. Again, Helldivers is a good example of how you can pull it off. On the counter side, you could point to something like Marvel Rivals, a phenomenally successful live service game that launched, of course, free to play and found a massive audience as a result of that. So it's just, you know, for every success, you can point to a failure, and for every premium offering, you can point to a free to play offering. But I think with this, it's going to be fascinating to watch how it plays out. The one thing I have said about Marathon where I think this could actually be beneficial has to do with the just nature of the game. Marathon is an extraction shooter, and just by way of how the game works, it can be very frustrating and rage-inducing. And when people get killed in an extraction shooter, sometimes the impulse is, screw this, I'm gonna go play something else, and they rage quit because I grinded for 2 hours for that. I'm gonna, close the game, go play something else. And I think to a certain extent, there's maybe a psychological aspect to this, where they're hoping by charging $40 or $60, they get people in and sort of committed. So like a sunk cost fallacy, where like somebody buys it for 40 and they want to rage quit because they just lost something they spent hours getting, but they don't, because they already spent the money, because I know that's how it would work for me. If I spent $40 on it and I had some griefer, or I got sniped from across the map, or I had terrible teammates that didn't res me and were just teabagging on me, which is not overly specific, definitely has not happened to me before. If that happened, my impulse would be to just, I'm going to quit out. I'm going to play something else. But if I paid $40 for it, I might be more inclined to play another few rounds to try and get my money out of it. Whereas if it was free to play, I could just down or uninstall it and move on, which I think they are scared people will do. But that's the nature of the beast. When you make an extraction shooter, that's what's going to happen. You're going to grind for hours, and then you're going to lose stuff, and it's going to feel really, really bad. It just will. It just will. So yeah, I paid for this. Might as well play the damn thing. Jacob says, I'm down to try for a bit, but ain't no way I can talk my crew into playing. Yeah. Well, it's with live service stuff now, it's just
Jimbo
that
404 donated $10 through Super Chat.
Oh, thank you.
That is why small incremental but permanent progression outside of the raid is imperative for long-term engagement.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's why a ranked mode could be really useful as you grind up your rank. You could also get access to new tiers of weapons or augments and attachments and stuff. There's all sorts of stuff that you could do with it. And apparently they will have that. I don't know if they'll have it at launch, but they will have stuff like that eventually. It's just, I mean, it's an uphill battle. And it feels like in 2025, people are looking for reasons not to engage with stuff, and they're looking for reasons not to play a new live service game as opposed to reasons to play it. And I think when you have a game like this, there's 1,000 reasons not to spend the money on it, not to play it, and only a few good reasons to play it. And that makes it a lot more difficult to sell it to people. Now, I had fun with Marathon when I tried it. I put, I don't know, 15, 20 hours or something into it. And I felt after that, I'd seen pretty much everything that their playtest had to offer. They've apparently made major improvements and major changes. They've totally overhauled a lot of the playable characters that they call runners. They've reworked movement, time to kill. They've reworked environmental stuff. They've reworked loot, UI. Like, they have proximity chat now. I've seen conflicting reports. There may even be a solo queue. We're not sure about that yet, but maybe. So it's hard to say right now exactly how much better it is, but apparently they've made a lot of improvements, and I'm excited to see what those improvements look like. The time will tell. Time will tell. They're doing another playtest. They just announced that they're opening it up to people. I won't be doing it because I want to be able to talk about it when I see it. So I'm going to wait just like everybody else who's not doing the playtest. But I'm sure we'll see leaks and stuff because it happened last time too. But at $40 and $60 for deluxe, I mean, it's an uphill battle, I think. It's steep. And there's only going to be more and more competition as time goes by, without a doubt. For example, like Arc Raiders being the obvious one. Shout out Jester95 for the super chat. Arc Raiders, which looks, and when I tried it, was very, very solid. Other games like Exoborn, Tarkov obviously is another one. Arena Breakout is another one that just came to Steam and is much more like Tarkov than like Exoborn is. So there's a lot of competition in the extraction shooter space, and there's still more coming and that have been announced and are expected to release in the next year or so. It's just an incredibly competitive marketplace right now. And Bungie does have a massive reputation that is certainly going to help them, at least I think. But this game also has a lot of baggage at the same time. So we'll see. We'll see. But they seem to be sticking to their guns with that $40 price point. They're not walking it back. They're sticking to it, and we'll see if it works out. We'll see. I think we probably hear about it early next month. Maybe they announce a play test or something before that, but we should be hearing something about it soon. Say what you love about Bungie, but they do know how to do gunplay. Well, and yeah, and the AI is really, really well done. I've noticed in Marathon, it was really well done. Some of the bot AI was like so good. At times we couldn't tell if it was a human player or NPC. Like, it was that good. It was very impressive. Sorry, I got distracted. I just opened Twitter to pull up the next story, and the first thing on the top of the screen is one of the top streams on Twitch right now, which is apparently a woman giving birth. I didn't know you could do that on stream. I am not sure why you would want to do that on stream, but yeah, I am not joking. One of the replies I saw to one of those posts on it was was somebody just a screenshot from Discord, and it was just a Discord moderator saying, "Guys, I can't believe I have to save this or say this out loud, but please, no giving birth in the voice chat. It's upsetting for some people." This is funny. This is one of the replies to the post. Childbirth is a beautiful thing. It's great. I've got 2 little boys of my own. I did not give birth to them. Shocking, I know. But my wife did a great job. It just feels very, very weird to stream that. Like, it's such an intimate, familial thing. It's just weird to me. Yeah, the jokes write themselves. I mean, the jokes write themselves as well. Yeah, biggest donation gets to name the kid. Oh, push. Oh, thank you for the 50 gifted. Like, it's just... I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just... Do we have to do everything on stream? Do we have to do everything on stream? Does everything have to be a performance? I don't know. Okay, this is funny. Did you see they leaked some of the shots from the upcoming season of The Witcher? Well, the rats were shown. Radovan replied to this. Siri with the rats in The Witcher season 4. And Radovan says, why does it look like a shot from a porn parody? No, I can't really unsee it because it does kind of give off that vibe. It does kind of give off that vibe. I don't know why. Oh, man. It could have been cool. Remember, there was a time where we thought the Witcher Netflix show was amazing. And then this happened. Also, if you live in the UK, just a heads up, apparently Discord hackers are claiming they have about 1.5 terabytes of age verification photos that were uploaded to like a third-party partner or something related to Discord to verify ages so that you could be in servers. Kind of that exact thing that we said was gonna happen is happening. So yeah. Shocked face. Oh man. Can't say I'm surprised. Timmy, where were you born? Twitch. Exactly, Mr. Hawk. Exactly. Again, childbirth is beautiful. I've turned into such a boomer curmudgeon with this stuff where I'm like, do we have to broadcast everything? Like everything? It's just frustrating. We were at a birthday party and like everybody's gathered around. They lit the candles, turned the lights off, and we're about to sing happy birthday. And the person we were singing it to, this is a little while back, but the person we're singing it to says, actually, can you turn on the lights so the lighting's better? And can you use my phone and film this? I was like, yeah, okay. Like, it was just like now it feels plastic. It feels fake. Like it was organic and sweet, and now it's like performative again, you know? Like it's just frustrating to me because it just kills that magic, the spark of the impromptu, just free flowing energy of everybody there. It's like, no, never mind. We got to perform it, film it. It's just stupid. It's why, like, one of my favorite things is seeing people performatively cry in like YouTube shorts and TikToks, because I just love the idea of somebody is like allegedly something terrible just happened to them, which 99% of the time I think they're faking it and it's all made up, but they say something awful happened and then they like, hold on, prep the hair. I have to go sit inside my Porsche with my head just off angle enough that you can see the Porsche emblem on the seat so you know that I'm rich. And then I'm going to also put my Balenciaga bag in the back seat, also perfectly in frame. Check the makeup. And then hit film. It drives me crazy. It's so stupid. I think everybody who does that should be mocked fervently because it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Drives me up the wall. Then you see like the 500,000 likes on it. It's like, feel better, baby. It's like, shut up. I always do that when I cry. Maybe that's the key. Maybe if I'm feeling sad, next time I should do that. And that's actually like the secret sauce to feeling better very quickly. Attention from strangers. That's the key. That's the key, man. I should have known. I saw a hugging with a sunset in the background and thought it was sweet until they checked the footage and had to redo it. Yeah, well, there's been like research done. And I'm trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, this is like a little tidbit of it, referring to it. A recent study, research on couples and Instagram suggests a complex relationship. While some studies link heavy social media usage to insecurity and lower relationship satisfaction, other research indicates happy, secure couples are more likely to express publicly their commitment online. And maybe there is countervailing evidence one way or another. I want to find the source. Let's see. It's from the University of Kansas, surveyed 300 couples. Participants were asked about their relationship as well as their social media habits. Researchers determined that couples who always post are more likely to compare their relationships to others. When you're constantly seeing other couples' happy moments and perfect pictures, it can be hard not to compare yourself. This can lead to feelings of jealousy and insecurity, which can be damaging to the relationship. It also found that couples who are less likely to post are less likely to compare their relationship to others. They feel less pressure to have the perfect relationship. This means couples who don't post as often are more likely to be happy and authentic in their relationship, which is something I've seen where like literally I've heard people say like word for word, yeah, but this couple X, Y, and Z. And it's like an excuse for why they feel bad or why they need to like take on debt to get the fancy car or something. It's like, no, you just do your own thing. So it like surprises people when I tell them also that like I don't really do social media despite doing it for a living. I can't stand like taking selfies or like posting rambling stuff about myself. I was talking to somebody I had just met the other day and they were like, oh, well, let me get you on Facebook. I'll add you to Facebook. I couldn't tell you the last time I logged into Facebook, my friend. I have no idea if I even know my password still. No clue. I really have a lot of disdain for it. But anyway. Comparing yourself to millions of other people is a great way to become insecure and depressed. Well, and there's even been studies specifically on young teenagers that links heavy Instagram usage and posting to increased rates of depression and feelings of insecurity, which also makes sense. Like if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people who are just trying to show the best parts of themselves, you're going to start to feel bad, man. You know, it's just going to happen. Because people are not sharing the bad times. They're not sharing the moments where, you know, they were having a bad day or when their hair looked like a mop on top of their head. They're sharing the best moments, the best lighting. They're touching up the zits on their face. Like they're doing all that, you know? Just be a person. Let people sing you happy birthday without filming it. Because guess what? No one cares. Like, I have a fairly large following online. I don't think any one of you would give a crap if I filmed somebody singing me happy birthday. Why would you care? You don't care what I had for breakfast. You don't need to see me post a picture of it on Instagram. You don't need to see me post a picture of me on the treadmill with my brand new whatever shoes so you know that I can afford nice shoes. And ooh, look, it's the new Peloton treadmill. Wow. You don't give a shit. And that's okay. I'm not going to pretend like you do, okay? Like it doesn't matter. We do care, Luke. Don't lie about it, Paradox. And even if you do, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should be like, Luke, I don't care what shoes you wear. It doesn't matter. You and your hobbit feet can wear whatever shoe you want. You know? Luke, you need to stream your entire life. Dude, I would literally freak out and have a mental breakdown. I watch those like subathons people do. Sometimes they end up being begathons, but I watch those subathons people do where they're like, I'm going to stream for 3 weeks straight. And they're like filming them in the shower and stuff. And I could never do it, man. I could never, ever do it. Like, I could see doing it if it's like, hey, Jacob, I'm going to go take a nap for 6 hours. Can you hold down the fort? And then Jacob comes and streams for 6 hours and like takes over for a bit. I could see that. But the ones where people are like literally filming and streaming themselves while sleeping, I'm good. I'm good. You know? I'm good. The sleep streams GFC, they're cringe. Dude, the one I remember hearing, I think it was when Amaranth went on Caleb Hammer, or maybe it was a separate clip. But I remember hearing her talk about how she was doing the sleep streams on Twitch, where literally she just streamed while she was sleeping. And she was like, we actually tracked it, and I had more viewers when I was sleeping than when I was awake. When I would wake up, the rate of viewership would drop. She's like, I could think about that and get kind of creeped out or grossed out that people just want to watch me unconscious, but I'm just not gonna think about it. I'm like, that's probably for the best. I don't want to know. I don't want to think about it. I'm good. It's like I don't want to go where that follows to. You know?
Intergalactic Pirate Radio, free live music. Donated $10 through Super Chat.
Hell yeah.
In some alternate reality, Apple leads the gaming market with their iPlay console, and Sega won the console war.
iPlay. God, can you imagine? Yeah, Apple takes 30% of absolutely everything, and all of your games need to launch on silver hollow discs, and I could see that happening. I could see them in another universe. I do still insist that Apple's complete negligence of the gaming market has been a colossal blunder. I don't think they realize, well, they do realize how big the gaming market is. I think it's just not, like, they just don't, they can't be arsed, you know, they can't be arsed. If they put money into it, I do think that there's a huge amount of people who would get into it. It's just like now, especially as people are moving away from consoles and towards PC, I think that there's a huge hole in the market where people are shopping for it. And if they could get a like gaming laptop in terms of gaming power, but it's a Mac with Mac build quality and the touchpad and the screens and everything, I think people would eat that up and would jump on it. The problem is, like, now you get a MacBook Pro that's $2,500 and it can run like a very few number of ports. It can run them at like 720p 30. Like, my MacBook Pro, I've had it for a couple years now, but that thing is like, it was quite expensive when I got it. If it was a gaming laptop, it would still be able to run all of these games at very, very high fidelity levels. But like that MacBook can barely run a damn thing. It's just, I think that's a huge hole in the market. Let me catch up on these super chats and everything real quick. I got distracted. Sorry, shocker. Loxy, thank you for the resub. 13 months at tier 2. Thank you, my friend. That's crazy. Appreciate you being here. Shadow, thank you for the 3 months. Glad to have you as well. Alexander Early, thank you for the 3 months as well. Oh no, actually, you subbed for 3 months at tier 1. You've been subbed for 10 months. Booyah. 10 months. Whoa. Thanks for the great entertainment, Luke. Thank you for being here, my friend. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And then on the YouTube side of things, Flem Nasty, thank you for the 9 months. Just an FYI, Digimon Storytime Stranger is amazing. And if you like JRPGs and Persona, you should definitely play it. Y'all have a wonderful day. Yeah, I did look it up after the last stream, after I think you brought it up. Yeah, it certainly looks like a hybrid of the two. And you know me, I love me some Persona. I love me some Persona. Or Metaphor, which is sort of the same family. But yeah, thank you for that. And 9 months at the show off tier. Hells yeah. Luke MF Smith, thank you for the 5. Did you see Nintendo suing the Reddit mod for $4 million? Wild. Yeah, they claim that he was instrumental, or they were instrumental, because I don't know if it's a boy or girl, I don't know. But they claim that the Reddit mod was instrumental in distributing pirated software, which makes them liable for lost revenue and sales. So they're suing the Reddit mod for like $4.5 million. And I think that that's going to become more and more common, especially because it seems like Reddit is in some pretty deep trouble. like really deep trouble. And yeah, specifically some of the stuff that's been alleged with like the H3 stuff and lawsuits seems to indicate that Reddit employees and like people high up within Reddit were involved in like potentially allegedly destruction of evidence, or at least trying to destroy evidence in an active case, which is a big no-no. And especially because there's supposed to be kind of a barrier between the community and then the people that work at Reddit. And it seems like that veil was pierced and they were kind of going back and forth. So if that establishes a precedent that you can identify the people behind the subreddits, the moderators on the subreddits, the admins within Reddit, if they establish that that's something you can do, then Reddit will be in trouble. And I think that that's what's going to continue to happen. And if that's the case, then companies like Nintendo will be super giddy, because there's communities on Reddit all about pirating, all about distributing ROMs and stuff. And you'll see Rolex suing Reddit because they have a subreddit sharing links to websites you can buy ripped off fake Rolexes and stuff. Like, you'll see everybody start to swarm it, and it'll either collapse or they will more likely just start to crack down on it like crazy, which I'm kind of surprised they haven't already. It's very similar to what happened with YouTube like 10 years ago with like the adpocalypse and all this stuff, where they kind of had to start being more professional with it. It still hasn't really happened with Twitch. With Twitch, there's still a ton of double standards. Some creators can get away with anything, and then others can't say much of anything without being banned. So who knows? Who knows? But I do think things will change. I think that things will get shaken up a lot. Jimbo, thank you again for the 10. Thank you. 12 p.m. is not in the morning. Again, time zones. But yeah, we're approaching 12. It's now 11:30 where I am. Peak Value, thank you for 5 months. This recent seasonal Steam sale really put a dent in my credit card. Dude, it was aggressive and very nice. Like 90% off of a lot of big AAA stuff too. It was wild. Vibonez, thank you for the 10. Luke, did you see EA censoring Arc Raiders in their launcher? I didn't see in their launcher. I saw them making it so like you couldn't use the term Arc Raiders in chats, like it was banned. Raiders censorship, maybe. Let's see. Activision says Arc Raiders censorship in Call of Duty Black Ops 7 lobbies was unintentional and will be fixed. Basically, the words Arc Raiders are censored in Black Ops 7 chat. PCG's Ellie Gould tested it out, and when you try to type those words, you just get a load of asterisks, which is also what happens if you put in like really bad words. Like really bad words, it does the same thing, which is funny because they're treating it the same way. And apparently Activision updated it and said that the block of Arc Raiders in Call of Duty Black Ops 7 beta test lobbies was the result of a text filter error. How exactly a mistake of that very specific nature happened was not shared, but the company said the error will be fixed soon and may well be fixed by the time you read this. I mean, it's so specific. I don't think it was just like an oopsie. I think that they filtered out names of competitors and stuff because they didn't want people being like, this game's better. And so they banned the term and then they got caught doing it. I'm guessing that's what it is, but yeah, here's a little snippet. You type in Arc Raiders and then it's just asterisks. Yeah, I don't think that was an accident. I don't think that's an accident. So yeah, I mean, apparently they're fixing it. They're changing it. I don't really know what that achieves, because again, it just turns it into like, it flips the narrative now. So it feels like you're scared of Arc Raiders. So you're banning people from talking about it. Like it literally makes it worse, but anyway, let's see. Catching up on this, continuing. Wilfredo, thank you for the 2. Helldivers 2 is PlayStation's forbidden fruit. It's the most successful accident that they ever had, and now they're trying to act as though it was part of their grand master plan, when it was just kind of like a happy occurrence, happy coincidence that it popped off so much. They didn't really market it that heavily. As I recall it, nobody was talking about it until everybody was talking about it. It exploded like overnight, in large part, in my opinion, because of the viral potential. There were so many clips that went viral on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all over the place. There were just little bite-sized elements of people screaming as really cinematic, ridiculous stuff started happening on screen. And it was awesome. It was a very, very good time. But I think that that's why it exploded. And I don't know if that same type of viral potential will be present for like Concord. Obviously it wasn't, or for certainly like Marathon. Prox chat will help with it, but
Gary29 donated £10 through Super Chat.
hell yeah, thank you.
Are you a Darksiders fan? I just looked at the pre-order on PS5 and it says pick your favorite horseman. I wonder if that means all of them have their own stories or they all share the same one.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how they're breaking it up. As for whether I'm a fan, I think I tried them, or one of them. I'm trying to look up the artwork because I'll recognize the artwork if I see it. I might have tried 3. I think I tried 3 for a little bit. That rings a bell. I think I tried 3 for a bit, but I'm not particularly familiar with them. As for other details, I don't really know. Honestly, I really don't know. I wish I had more to say about it. Thank you for the £10. I just genuinely am not sure. But I appreciate the 10. I've heard 3 is the worst one. That's probably why I fell off of it so quickly. A lot of people are like, that's not the one you should give a chance. Yeah, I should go back. The OG's from like 2010 or 2011, I think. It's an older game, but probably means it's cheap too. Let's see. I read that one. Thank you again, Jimbo, for that 10. Jester, again, thank you for the 5 about Arc Raiders. Looking like so much fun. It was a good time. I'm really hoping that they continue to make improvements on it. Because they've got all the wind in their sails for sure. Rock Hawk, thank you for the 2. Again, Timmy, where were you born? Twitch. It's so cynical and sad. SGM, thank you for the super chat. Just watched your video on Bethesda, and wow, can we all agree as a community to boycott Elder Scrolls 6 if it's just Starfield and Elder Scrolls Concord it to hell? I do have a video sort of adjacent to Elder Scrolls 6 that I do want to touch on, specifically countering what I got a comment about. It'll make sense in a few minutes when we look at it, but yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's see. Intergalactic. Was it Intergalactic? Yeah, Intergalactic. Pirate Radio. Thank you for the 10 again. Appreciate you. Kyle, thank you for the 2. Luke, if it helps, I'd watch you sleep. Not sure what to do with that, but thank you. Bryce, thank you for the membership. Degrees Below, thank you for 10 months. Yeah, Luke, between the H3 Hassan and Kirk issues, Reddit, Twitch, other companies are about to be wide open with these lawsuits. Well, it's just, I mean, it's all fun and games until the lawyers get involved and there's significant risk of penalties. The reason why, like, I think the H3 lawsuit is significant compared to like other typical stuff is that Ethan has the money and he is also, he's not just doing this to try and get a payday. He's trying to make a point, and that's way scarier for those guys. Like, if you're looking for money, they just settle with you. You get a fat paycheck and then you move on with your life. But when somebody's trying to prove a point, it's like the Billy Mitchell and Carl Jobst stuff, or Jobst stuff, where like Billy's not just looking for a payday. He's looking to like make an example of a guy that said he was responsible for someone else's well, you know what happened to Apollo Legend. So, you know, when people are not just looking for money and looking for a settlement, that's when they're really dangerous. And that's, I think, why Reddit and those guys are a little spooked right now. Especially when in one of the filings, I saw in one of the filings, they were admitting that Reddit admins, so like people who work for Reddit, were helping people within those subreddits and offering to pay for memberships to services that scrub their personal information from the internet. So they're like openly admitting that they were trying to help the defendants hide their identity and delete information and evidence from the internet on Reddit's dime, presumably, which is like such a massive no. Like it you can't even, like, if you have to describe how big of a no is, I'm not sure the person you're talking to is capable of understanding how much of a no that is. Like you cannot do that. You just can't. And once you've done that, you've now inserted yourself into the case. And that's why, I mean, I'd be scared if I were those Reddit guys. You don't delete evidence, Luke? Yeah, shocker. I don't. Speaking of evidence, this is random, but I just remembered. Do some of you guys remember when I made the brief comment telling you guys about our stalker that we had, like, right around COVID? Do you remember that? Remember me telling you all about that? Do you remember that? Luke MF Smith, thank you for the 10. Poop indeed. Poop indeed. No, yes, a few of you
Luke
do.
MF Smith donated $9.99 through Super Chat. Poop.
Indeed. Well, they apparently just arrested him again. I thought he was dead because he had a bench warrant issued for him, disappeared for like 4 years. I thought he was like dead on the side of a highway or something, but no, they apparently just arrested him and he's got a court date on the 21st. So yeah. when that case gets resolved and everything, I will share the whole story with you guys because it is insane. And now it's been long enough. Now at this point, it's been like 5-6 years since it all started. That it's like kind of funny because it's now just like so insane that it's like kind of funny. But yeah, one day I will share the whole story because it's so insane. It's ridiculous, but yeah, we'll see what happens with this guy. Live stream the court case. I will not be here. I think I'll be on a plane when it's happening. So I won't be able to attend this hearing. But this hearing is like one of the, I mean, I think he may not even be in the courtroom. It may be like a remote hearing. And I don't think the judge will be too happy because, again, he's been evading a bench warrant for like 4-ish years. And that followed after he refused to come into court and he refused to follow the advice of counsel, refused to work with the public defender, all that stuff. So yeah, it's all insane. And I guarantee you it will be very entertaining, but we'll see what happens with it. When I have updates, I will share. So just you wait. I told him one day, like 5-6 years ago when all this was happening, I told him, if you keep doing this, I'm going to get the police involved and I'll take care of it. He didn't believe me. And here we are. Told you so. Told you. Didn't you also get swatted? Yes. Many times. I think only one was officially made public, but yes. That stuff I hope to also one day have an update on. So we'll get there. Yeah. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that like you don't air your dirty laundry in that way. And especially when somebody's looking for attention and they're looking to get attention for the things they're doing, you don't want to give them what they're looking for. So you end up just kind of keeping it private and you don't broadcast it everywhere under advisement from law enforcement and the FBI and everything. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the background over the last handful of years that one day I hope to be able to share and talk about because it's insane. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. You don't even know. And amazingly enough, the most recent era of it started allegedly because of Starfield. And I am not joking. I am not joking. We'll continue on. Yeah. that's a whole other thing, but yeah, that is allegedly where it all started from. Not the stalker, that was before Starfield, but the later stuff that happened. Let's see. Blake, thank you for the 5. Late to stream, but did you see Pete Hines' comments about Xbox and Bethesda? Yeah, we looked at them on stream Monday. Some of the other stuff he said about it being a different company and all of that. We did look at that. Alexander, also, thank you for the membership. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. No live birth on this stream. Sorry, Casey. Sorry, no live birth on this stream. I understand if it's not what you're looking for. So I get it. I get it. Anyway, I saw this pop up on my feed. This looked very, very funny. I kind of wanted to look at it. Somebody edited together a news report of CCTV footage showing the Benny assassination in Fallout New Vegas inside the Tops Casino, and they cut it together like an actual news broadcast.
Who won the lottery?
We interrupt our programming for breaking news coming from the New Vegas Strip. Good afternoon. Chaos erupted today inside the Tops Casino located in the heart of the New Vegas Strip. According to surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts, a man wearing NCR Ranger equipment and a Pip-Boy entered the casino earlier this afternoon and opened fire on Benny, one of the casino's most notorious leaders.
No.
Curiously, during the chaos, many gamblers inside the casino believed the shootout to be part of an attraction. Some continued playing without interruption, while others even cheered for the winner. Most, however, ran in panic as the gunfire echoed through the casino floor. The suspect was not alone. He was reportedly accompanied by a man strongly believed to be Craig Boone, the same individuals allegedly involved in the execution of Novak Motel owner Jeannie Mae Crawford just last night. The shocking video shows the moment the shootout began.
They
Benny
blur
was
it out.
killed in the exchange, along with 3 of his personal bodyguards. Several others were gravely injured and are now receiving medical treatment from the followers of the Apocalypse and Freeside. Both suspects fled the scene shortly after the gunfire and remain at large. The casino's administration has refused to comment on the case. Meanwhile,
It kind of makes me hope that, like, because it is so like immersive, and it makes it feel real, like that the player's actions actually have an impact on the strip in the game. It makes me wonder, like, could you do this in an actual full game where you have like news stations broadcasting, like, you know, in Cyberpunk where they have the news stations, they make references to some of the stuff. Like, what if they actually had it so there were in-game cameras capturing what you do in this way? So in like Cyberpunk, you go and take care of the Voodoo Boys or something, and then they actually have like little snippets of stuff that they've captured of you and the specific way you did it and like your character's cosmetics and stuff. Wouldn't that be cool if they could do that? Because like this is like so extra immersive to see it and be like, oh, your actions in the game had a consequence on the strip. And there's ways you make references to it and characters will reference it, but this is just like, it's just very well executed in terms of presentation. I think it's really cool.
Gamblers are shaken, with many fearing for their safety on the strip.
Oh, and also like the integration of the NPCs' behaviors that don't change because in the game, like even when you're on the lower floor fighting with like enemies, you'll still have the NPCs on the upper floors whose AI doesn't update for what's happening on the first floor. So they're still stuck in their like cheering animations or their gambling animations. And to integrate that into the script as like part of it, that they were confused thinking it was part of a show or a presentation. Like it's genuinely really clever.
Some are saying the Mojave Wasteland feels more dangerous than ever. Even a local ghoul echoed those words.
Spare a cap? I can make it worth your while.
In a statement, an NCR spokesperson denied any involvement in the incident but confirmed that the Republic is conducting its own investigation. Still, questions remain. Could the NCR itself be behind these escalating attacks? The identities of both suspects remain unconfirmed, but their connection to the violent events in Novak raises growing concerns about unrest across the Mojave. This is Mojave News Network.
Mojave News Network. They also have other ones. NCR releases drone attack footage.
Good evening. We interrupt our programming to bring you breaking news from the town of Nipton, just east of the Mojave Outpost. Earlier today, what can only be described as a massacre unfolded. Caesar's Legion forces stormed the town, executing citizens in the streets, burning buildings, and leaving a trail of death and fire in their wake. Survivors describe scenes of unimaginable horror, with entire families slaughtered and the town's mayor paraded before being brutally executed as an example. Residents from nearby settlements reported seeing smoke for miles, with some describing the scene as hell on earth.
The Legion happened.
The guy running down the street. Who won the lottery? This guy.
It looked like.
Nipton has effectively ceased to exist as a functioning town. In response to this act of terror, the NCR has released footage showing a counterattack operation. The video, captured by a drone-mounted camera, depicts
The sound scared me.
kamikaze strike on a small Legion patrol just outside Nipton mere hours after the massacre. NCR officials have not confirmed whether any Legion leadership figures were among the casualties, but they are framing the footage as proof of swift retaliation and control. This comes as part of a wider recruitment campaign by the NCR, which is now in full swing across the Mojave Wasteland.
Dude.
Posters, radio broadcasts, and now combat footage are being used to rally support and new soldiers for their fight against Caesar's Legion. Meanwhile, citizens remain shaken. Some express fear that this war is escalating beyond control, while others welcome the NCR's show of force as the only way to push back against Caesar's brutal reign. One thing is certain. Nipton stands as a grim reminder of the Legion's cruelty, and the Mojave is bracing for what comes next. This is Mojave News Network, keeping you informed. Subscribe.
How did I not know this existed before today? Like, it's phenomenal. Very well done, El Alemon. Very, very well done. I'm eating this up. I love this. I think it does get my gears turning at like the idea of bookending the player's actions in a story. Like if you have it broken up by chapter, for example, and you have some sort of climactic moment or choice or consequence at the end of each chapter, and then you have like a dynamic in-game camera that's following based on this, because like you could set it up where, you know, with Nipton stuff, where literally it's like, okay, well, the player could go into Nipton, and of course you can clear it out. You can choose to kind of start working with them, build connections with Caesar's Legion at that point. And so you could have basically two alternative versions, and you could have like a little offhand comment about traveler was seen walking into the city and leaving with Caesar's Legion operatives. We aren't sure whether they were involved or if they were captured by the Legion, but it's something that investigators are keeping an eye on. Whatever you could do. You could have different ways of tying that in. And I think specifically if you were able to do in-game cameras to capture the literal footage of the player, where you literally have the player in their full cosmetics and outfit and everything, all of their actions, their actual movement reflected, that would be super, super cool. Very cool. I see this and it's so cool to me because it makes the world feel even more living, even though all of this is technically still being accounted for in the game and your decisions do have impact in the game. Seeing it presented in this way feels much more immersive and very, very cool. I really like it. They were wearing insert dialogue of outfit during the heist. Yeah, you could have all sorts of stuff like that. Exactly. Gamora, I just noticed this. How did I just notice this after all these years? Gamora underneath the flaming sign, it has a big sign that says air conditioned. Oh, good. That's great. Love that. I love it. So anyway, I saw that. I thought that was really cool. And now I feel robbed that I didn't know about that before this. So there you go. I thought it was interesting. You should go subscribe to them because they are very talented. It's very clever. Again, the NPCs being confused about the attack, thinking it was part of a performance. That's so clever and such a clever way of integrating their like brain dead AI into it. It's very, very cool. It's very cool. Todd's watching Luke's stream right now, writing all of this down for Fallout 5. He's writing all of it down to hand off to Virtuos to put into the remake. But it will not be in Fallout 5. No. We're not doing that. No, that sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. Don't want to deal with that. Will you be doing another CitizenCon I can't read. Sitcon, is it Sitcon or CitizenCon? Anyway, will you be doing another recap for Star Citizen with Space Tomato on Saturday? The plan is to do a recap with him. I do need to circle back with him. But my plan is to do another recap on the event. Hopefully there's something to talk about. Who knows if there will be, but we'll see. We'll see. We know that Squadron 42 will not be there. We do know that. So, but yeah, that is the plan. That is the plan. Real quick. Oh, that was weird. I turn and then it does it. Smower Gaussen, thank you for the sub. Whoop, 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 whoop. Indeed. Indeed. So, new sort of segment. We talk about Bethesda a lot on this channel, on all my channels, frankly, because I'm an old school fan. I love Bethesda games, or some of the older ones, and I want them to be better. I want them to make better games and make improvements and stuff. And so inevitably we talk about Starfield, Fallout, Elder Scrolls a lot, Todd in general. And you know, that sometimes is very constructive. Sometimes we meme a lot and it can frustrate people, but I try at least to provide my perspective and constructive, actionable perspectives, ideas, whatever. But inevitably we end up with some Bethesda fans that get upset, that do not like the criticisms, because they may take it personal, or maybe they honestly do feel that the criticisms or critiques are being made in bad faith, or being made without an honest care for the results. I got a comment on one of our recent clips where the individual used some aggressive language, so I'm not going to show the comment word for word because of TOS. They were passionate. I'll tell you that. They were passionate. But the comment that person made was effectively, and I'm of course paraphrasing here, it was effectively that, Luke, when you're looking at these videos of people explaining how they're dissatisfied with Starfield, or they're frustrated about Elder Scrolls, or the direction of BGS, you're not looking at a true Bethesda fan. You're not looking at somebody's video who is a true fan. They basically said you're reacting to videos from like grifters who don't actually care about Bethesda or Elder Scrolls. They're just in it for the Bethesda rage bait. Okay. Interesting. I wouldn't cast aspersions like that. I wouldn't say that the people we've reacted to are acting in bad faith. But okay, even if we take it for granted and we say, okay, sure, let's run with that. It doesn't really dismiss any of the claims or critiques. But I thought, you know what? Let's find a video discussing Elder Scrolls 6 from one of the most hardcore and knowledgeable Elder Scrolls fans that I could find. And I found someone who really knows their stuff, has thousands of hours in old school Elder Scrolls content, and knows these games better than pretty much anybody I've ever seen. Like, really knows them backwards and forwards. It's a smaller channel by the name of Zarek. And he's got the suit and tie. He's ready to go. And he has like an encyclopedic knowledge of how these games are built and work. Really knows his stuff. So I want to see what he thinks of Elder Scrolls 6, hear his thoughts, because I don't want anybody to think that we're just trying to filter out videos or reacted content based on like agreement or whatever, or based on shared experience. But I think even as you look at this video and as we watch it together, I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the common threads and critiques that I've raised and many other people have raised after Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Starfield, and Skyrim to a certain extent, I think those critiques will carry through, because this is not just a grifter perspective. It's a broader perspective across many different subsets of the fandom, and even among some of the most hardcore fans that really know their stuff. And so I'm excited to hear what this guy has to say, because from the snippets and tidbits of other videos on the channel I've seen, really knows Elder Scrolls. So let's see.
Series a lot.
Here.
I like the Elder Scrolls series a lot. I have thousands of hours in Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and the Elder Scrolls Online, and I like each of them for different reasons, although not necessarily the reasons people typically think I do. I love the format of the Elder Scrolls series. First person, real-time dungeon crawlers. There are tons of dungeon crawlers I could shout out, from Wizardry to Atarian Odyssey to Legend of Grimrock, but
Those are deep cuts. If you're like, what? Exactly. Okay. Exactly. You can say whatever you want. You're listening to someone who knows these types of games. Okay, he knows these games.
none of them have that special something that the Elder Scrolls series does. Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall is a fantasy life sandbox with a political simulation ensuring that the world doesn't revolve around the player, but rather the player is adrift and subject to forces larger than them. Mods transform the experience further into a fantasy life simulation where it really does feel like you're living the life of a professional adventurer. Morrowind sacrifices the scope, scale, and unpredictability of Daggerfall, but in exchange has unparalleled world building, not to be confused with world design, which is the virtue the later Elder Scrolls games have. Rather, Morrowind's world building is an element of excellent background storytelling, and its main quest informs so much of the political landscape of Vardenfell. With expertly crafted mods like Tamriel Rebuilt and Project Tamriel that take Morrowind's game design ethos and quadruple the amount of thoughtfully crafted content, the only game that I feel does the world building, factions informing the political landscape better, would be Fallout New Vegas. But
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Fallout New Vegas. I do think one of the things that's going to be broken up over the course of this is the slow transition and shift in philosophy that happened over the course of the series. Arena plays nothing really like a Daggerfall, or certainly once we get all the way up to like Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. They start to play very, very differently, and the priorities shift and the direction starts to shift. And again, this is somebody that really knows their stuff, and you'll hear that brought up repeatedly, is that the focus on world building, on careful consideration and writing of the political landscape and everything, that starts to slowly be abandoned. And if you've ever tried playing like just a straight vanilla playthrough of Skyrim, you'll start to see this. You'll start to see it all over the place, where everything is quite low stakes. Major conflicts can be resolved in a 5-minute sequence. You want to become the head of the School of Magic, go do 10 minutes of questing, and boom, you're the head of the entire school. Like, you know, everything just like the stakes are lowered. Nothing is like that intense. And so it allows you to live this kind of fantasy, sort of power fantasy, where everything is super condensed into short time frames, but it also makes the world feel much more like your playground as opposed to like a world in which you happen to be exploring that is going to carry on whether you're in it or not. Yeah. Do you think he does reviews of the day? The Elder Scrolls review.
But that's a story for another day. Moving along, Oblivion sacrifices much of the world building that made Morrowind one of the best games in the world, and instead focuses on cinematic storytelling and world design. Oblivion contains the formative elements that basically all Bethesda games will be known for moving forward. Fallout 3, New Vegas, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76 are all more or less the exact same format as Oblivion. They are open-world sandbox dungeon crawlers that do first-person real-time exploration and combat. When people say that one of these newer games has better story than Daggerfall or Morrowind, they're usually referring to the expression of the story, how it's conveyed to the player. The overall writing doesn't get better per se, but rather the world building in later games begin to use earlier games as a crutch, but paradoxically change whatever they feel like.
I do think that this is an important distinction, though, because when we talk about like a game story or narrative, a lot of the time people will break it down and they think literally like it's the outline of this character does this and this character goes there and this character does this and this character does that and then this happens. But that's not really all that there is. You know, in the world of, what can I talk about that like spoilers are okay getting into? Well, I mean, even if we just stick to Skyrim, like Skyrim is not, its story is not just, hey, you have these weird magic dragon abilities. Okay, you're gonna go and you're gonna fight this big dragon and free the land from that. It's not just that. It's informed by all of the factions. It's informed by the political landscape within the world itself, the map, and then that's influenced by everything else. In The Witcher 3, it's not just go here, find Yennefer, find the weird mutant baby, and then go and do this, and then this happens, and then you find Ciri, and then this happens, and then you fight the Wild Hunt, and the story's over. It's so much more than that. It's exploring Oxenford, it's exploring Novigrad and going to Skellige, and it's seeing how those different peoples interact with each other. The side quests inform it, the characters you meet on tangential quests that also tie back into the main story. All of that is part of the story, you know? It's not just the broad strokes of the main quest. And I think that sometimes it can be boiled down too much into that way where it's like, well, honestly, I thought that the story was quite boring in this game because it was a very simple quest, when that's not necessarily the key. AC Shadows, for example, it basically has the exact same premise as Ghost of Yote. I think Ghost of Yote has much better story overall, narrative overall, because it's all of the other stuff that also contributes to the main story and the main quest that builds it up. Whereas AC Shadows, everything is like pretty plain and monotone and dry and largely, in my opinion, uninteresting by comparison. So I do think that this is a crucial comparison to bring up, or distinction to bring up that he's mentioned. So I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's important to remember that just because you may love the universe of like a Fallout, that does not mean that the writing in Fallout 76's narrative content is good, because as Zark said, the previous games start to get used as a crutch, where the foundations that they laid are now being used to keep people engaged, you know, whereas like the individual writing nowadays may not be that interesting or compelling, but they're relying on your nostalgia, your love for the franchise, your knowledge of the lore, and other stuff like that to keep you hooked. And it's why I think in large part Starfield started to fall really flat. And it's because they had no nostalgia or foundation to rely on. They didn't have stuff done by really talented writers 20 years before to rely on. It was all just Emil's work, which lots of people found lacking. So again, very important distinction.
I'm not saying a series of creative works can't change ideas as it evolves. We wouldn't want lore to be reduced to a shackle limiting creativity. But when the changes are done in the interest of making the overall world less fantastical and containing less interesting things because of limitations within the current design iteration, that's when I have a tendency to complain about it. And complain about it I have over the years. For example, people harp on Cyrodiil not being a jungle as kind of a catch-all for their criticism with how Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion didn't match up to their expectations. But I don't really care about that one specific thing too much. What bothers me is the loss of the Imperial forts and the Imperial Navy, both references from Morrowind, the Imperial Dragon Riders from Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire, the airships from Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard and Morrowind, and finally, a substantive difference between Calovia and Nibene as cultures, something that Oblivion's own lore books and own NPCs insist is a thing, but is not expressed in the reality of gameplay. There's a width and breadth.
I love the specificity, dude. I love it. It's just, it's very nice to hear like deep cuts, stuff from like, what airships? And it's like, oh yeah, oh, you know, it all starts to come back in, and it's just, again, it's very nice to hear. Again, you can say whatever you want. Knows his stuff, right? Like, come on.
To the writing of Tamriel that isn't expressed in Elder Scrolls 4, and that's fine, I guess. It's not a good thing, but when I sit down and play Oblivion, I have fun. So circling back around to break this down, backstory, lore, world building, characters, narrative, All of these are elements of a story. But when the average player, not to be confused with a YouTube talking head, when the average player talks about story, they are discussing the emotional journey the book, movie, or game took them on. In order to be taken on an emotional journey, one has to enjoy the experience of partaking in the medium. That's why book talkers are some of the most miserable human beings on the face of the earth.
Book Talk is a sub-community on the internet social media platform TikTok that focuses on books and literature. This book club emerged in late 2019 as TikTok was becoming more popular. Members of the sub-community, also known as book talkers, make videos reviewing, discussing, and joking about the books they read. These books range in genre, but many content creators tend to focus on young adult stuff. Sorry, this is funny.
That's because most of them hate reading. Therefore, they can never partake in the journey. Likewise, people
Most of them hate reading.
playing, the most recent example would be Starfield, just to critique it, most likely never took the time to enjoy the individual quest stories the companion NPCs had. And the players who were playing it just to critique it, most likely saw those NPCs as an impediment to their completion of that critique. If the core gameplay loop isn't enjoyable, people aren't going back to stick around and enjoy the story. A game can have the best story in the world, but if the gameplay isn't fun, it fails as a game, at least for most people. That's partly why I take offense.
I think that's true, and I think with these types of games, like I've used the terms like this game is really easy to play, and when I use that term, I often clarify I'm not saying the difficulty is easy. Usually what I mean is that it's easy to just play for hours, easy to get lost in. Like, you know, those types of games where you just start it and you just kind of lose yourself. And you look up, you check your watch, and oh God, 3 hours has gone by. You know, you lose yourself in it. It's one of my favorite things about old school Bethesda games is that I was able to get lost in those games very easily and very frequently. It's what I loved about New Vegas, and I still get lost in New Vegas all of the time. Expedition 33, KCD 2, for me, I agree, David, very easy to play, where you just get lost in it. And when you get lost, it sort of does this weird thing where it disarms your critical faculties in a good way, where you stop like critiquing things actively in your mind and you just are present. You're purely present, you know? And that's when you will have the most impactful, like emotional experience with a story, whether it's a film, a novel, a TV show, or a game. It's when you can have the most fun. It's like, I still remember times, or like a time when I was playing, for example, Red Dead 2, and sort of spoilers for something you find in near a cave in the far, I think, northeastern area of the map, if I recall correctly. But I remember I was just riding as I think Arthur, and I heard something as I rounded a corner up along this like cliffside, and I like kind of turned around and I walked back over there, and basically you hear what now is commonly referred to as like the Bigfoot Easter egg in Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 Bigfoot. Let's see. Is this it? Unmute, damn you.
Next to the Indian reservation, a flock of birds will appear in the sky. If you follow them, they will take you to Bigfoot's cave. We are here.
Yeah, with the weird ledge.
Hi.
What's your name?
John. John Marston, usually. Who are you?
Have you found Bigfoot?
And there's like a whole conversation in there. It's like a giant, not Bigfoot. Yeah, it's like commonly called the Bigfoot Easter egg, but it's like you never see him, I don't think. But like I was just lost in the world, just exploring, having a good time, and I came across that, and years later, it still has stuck with me. It was a really, really cool moment that was just emergent because I got lost in it. You know, I eat it up. I love that kind of thing, and that's when you can really connect with a game's world in a way you're not going to if you're just blasting through the story. You know, it's connection with that world in a deeper way that happens when you're disarmed and when you are lost in it. That's when you really get immersed, and that's why immersion is so important in a game, I think. And one of the ways you get immersed is when the gameplay systems are fluid, are fun, are engaging, and reinforce exploration and immersion in that world. You know, if you could have a really well put together open world map, an interesting story, but if, for example, traversal is super annoying and breaks you out of immersion constantly, like in Starfield with the fast travel stuff and load screens, you're constantly going to be ripped out of immersion, and you're not ever going to really get lost in that universe, in that world. You can say, well, Luke, in older games, load screens were much more common. Yeah. The standards have changed, and players now are conditioned to seamless exploration. And when players are conditioned for that, they expect it. And when it doesn't do that, it's jarring. Ooh, I dropped some frames there. That was weird. I dared to start mentioning load screens, and Todd sent us a sonic beam to my computer. That was weird. But anyway, that I think is a major component of this that I totally agree on. You have to be able to get immersed and lost in the world to appreciate all of those side stories, side quests. Otherwise, you'll never engage with them, never really appreciate them, and you won't connect with it in that same way. It's why immersion's important, and gameplay is important. Even in a narrative-heavy game, you still have to have a certain level of gameplay fluidity and immersion that contributes to it. Whoops, sorry.
World, but if the gameplay isn't fun, it fails as a game, at least for most people. That's partly why I take offense to calling visual novels games, even if they sometimes have game elements inside of them, because they're made primarily to be read. Even if some real work has to be done to reach the true ending, your expectations sitting down to the experience is completely different from your average video game. Speaking of completely different expectations, I believe firmly that the video game pathologic is art. But it also has a different goal other than fun. It makes the player feel confusion, pressure, even desperation. I believe it succeeds in that, but I also have to be careful who I recommend it to, because not all media is in fact comfort media. So the modern Bethesda game...
1000% agree. 1000% agree. It's the comparison I brought up previously was like, for example, like Schindler's List as a film. Phenomenal film. It is not fun. I struggle to even say if it's entertaining. Like, it's something else. It's maybe important, something like that. You could say that, but it's not fun, certainly. But that doesn't mean it's not worth watching or engaging with. And in the same vein, there's video games that I think are very good or compelling. I don't know if I'd call them fun. Like even The Last of Us Part 2, would I call that game fun? Like there's not a lot of joy that goes through your brain when you play something like The Last of Us Part 2. That doesn't mean it's not worth playing. You can appreciate it, and maybe it's engaging or it's interesting or captivating. There's all sorts of words you could use for it, but fun is not the end all be all. Certainly. I do think that that's an important distinction. Terra Rising, thank you for the 5, says, perfect example is the ships you meet wandering in Starfield. If we were floating instead of load screen into them, they would have felt more emergent, and it would disarm you. I do think that is accurate. Like it's really hard to get lost in a world when you're constantly asked to pause like all sensory appreciation. Let's go. You're feeling immersed while exploring this world? Well, okay. Well, if you want to get back to your ship, you can walk back, but it's going to take you 10 minutes of silence, and nothing will happen because you already traversed over that area, so no new spawns will happen. So you can fast travel back. When you fast travel back, there's going to be a load screen, and then you're going to need to fast travel into the cockpit, and then you fast travel into orbit, and then you fast travel from orbit to the other planet you want to explore. And it's just like, it's really hard to get lost in that, some people can do it. They can tune it out. Others can't. And I think that the disjointed reaction and reception is kind of proof positive of that.
Is a comfort media experience where the story is expressed to the player in real time through voice dialogue. If presentation is what you value most, Oblivion is certainly when Bethesda games achieved their current form. Oblivion tosses out most of the unique world building set up for it in both the pocket guides and the NPC dialogue from Morrowind in favor of its own thing. In a sort of medieval fantasy sandbox, it doesn't really have a whole lot on its own as a setting, but at the time, it did stand out. A lot of its competitors in the fantasy RPG space were still isometric, or first-person grid-based at the time. The few 3D games were typically linear and not open world. When I say Oblivion tossed things out, though, I'm talking about the well-written subtext and political intrigue of Vardenfell. It became an overt good versus evil plot. NPCs rarely had hidden motivations, and when they did, it was short-lived. Basically everything in...
Well, and I think that this also is important to acknowledge that right around the time where Emil started getting really, really involved, or even becoming the main writer on things, you started to notice this like dumbing down of concepts and ideas. And I think what it honestly is a lack of respect for the player, or appreciation for the player's ability to appreciate the story. And it's reflected in that talk he gave where he said, you know, we could write the next great American novel and players will rip out the pages and make paper airplanes, implying that therefore you shouldn't even bother trying. You know, he's like, why bother trying to write the next great American novel if they're just going to rip pages out of it? I mean, you would hope that they would do it anyways because they want to write the best story that they can, and somebody will appreciate it. Even if just one player appreciates this complex motivation for the villain, it's worth it. But that's not what he's arguing or saying in that talk. In that talk, he's basically arguing that nobody's going to appreciate it, so you just shouldn't bother wasting the time on it. Go for quantity over the quality, because nobody will really care about the quality, which is just patently false. And it's why I think you started to see all of these things stripped out and things simplified down. So then the storyline basically just becomes bad guy doing bad things because bad guy mean. And it's like, there's not a whole lot more to it than that. It's just very, very simplistic and unidimensional, but that's the type of game that they started to make, like especially coming out of like the Fallout 3 era, going into Skyrim and Fallout 4. Fallout 4, I think they started to experiment with it, but it was like really revealed that they did not have, I think, the writers to pull that off, because there's a lot of plot holes in Fallout 4 if you start really looking for them that can cause like problems. A lot of stuff that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. You know, and it's even okay, I guess no spoilers, even though I really want to. Maybe we'll do a deep dive on Fallout 4's story. That could be funny. But no extensive spoilers, but even the basic premise of why your child is abducted in the start of Fallout 4 doesn't really make any sense when you start to think about it. It's a whole other thing. Anyway, continuing on.
Oblivion, minus a few standout examples, operates under entirely on what you see is what you get. The world became the centerpiece of everything you did. In exploring the world, you found countless things to occupy your mind as you ping-pong from area to area, which isn't a bad thing if exploring is your favorite thing to do in a Bethesda game, and it is for me. Skyrim is a refinement of Oblivion in many respects. Fans of Morrowind and Oblivion will often tell you that Skyrim isn't really as much of an RPG as Oblivion is, and depending on what your criteria for what makes an RPG, they'd probably be right. RPG is an overused term these days, and if you tell a stranger something is an RPG and provide no other information, a meeting of the minds most likely did not occur because the two of you had different ideas on what the term RPG means. In this case, though, it's strictly mechanical. Skyrim drops the stat system that the Elder Scrolls series had going since its inception, and tied everything into a set of perks, which, while not horrible, was certainly lacking for someone who really wanted a sense of mechanical complexity. Bethesda has a tendency to identify problems with their previous games and throw the baby out with the bathwater rather than fix them. But people define RPGs in other ways as well. For example,
I do think that that's true. I think that what Bethesda's general approach is that they look at it and they're like, okay, we had a game people loved back in the day with Morrowind that had endless depth. Maybe not endless, extensive depth. And so they're like, we have plenty of meat to cut and trim if we need to. And so they've just been doing that for 2 decades. And now there's not a lot left on the bone, but they're like, oh, well, we could trim that out and make that even more streamlined. And so you end up just with this bizarre thing that it has very little in common with what you initially fell in love with. This dude is funny on his mods. Well, the mod that I first noticed was that this is the mod for like the alternative start, or it's one of the alternative start mods. So you don't start on the wagon, you start as like in the fort. And he definitely has the jiggle physics turned on. Pretty aggressive jiggle physics.
Inception, and tied everything into a set of perks, which, while not horrible, was certainly lacking for someone who really wanted a sense of mechanical complexity. Bethesda has a tendency to identify problems with their previous games and throw the baby out with the bathwater rather than fix them. But people define RPGs in other ways as well. For example, a lot of people who are fans of Bethesda games will insist that an RPG must allow you to create your own character, which isn't true of the majority of non-tabletop RPGs in existence. Oh, it's one of my favorite aspects of a Bethesda game, right below exploration. And don't get me wrong, it has its roots in tabletop RPGs, which I personally equate to being the most pure form of RPGs. But
Agree. Preach. Tabletop RPGs. Oh, I love me a good tabletop RPG. I actually just wrote the like first session of the next campaign I want to do. I set it up as a one shot that's going to lead into it because I want to give people an off ramp if they decide, yeah, I don't want to commit to a year of this one game. But yeah, I agree. Tabletop RPGs are the purest form of it. But yeah, anyway, sorry, distracted.
creating your own character is only one possible expression of what it means to be an RPG. Of course, you'll get the lazy person saying, if you play a role, it's an RPG. But I simply refuse to acknowledge that playing the role of Gordon Freeman...
I thought... I just simply refuse to acknowledge that perspective. I was ready for that. I'd respect it, honestly. Because that drives me crazy, dude. When people are like, well, really, in a lot of ways, Super Meat Boy is an RPG because you're playing the role of a Super Meat Boy, And it's like, shut up. I don't want to do business with you. Okay, what was he actually going to say?
Lazy person saying, if you play a role, it's an RPG. But I simply refuse to acknowledge that playing the role of Gordon Freeman makes Half-Life an RPG. Really, the Elder Scrolls series are action games with light RPG elements from the word go, compared to something like Baldur's Gate 2 or Fallout 1 and 2. Fallout 1 and 2 weren't made by Bethesda, by the way. And that's fine. Not every sandbox game needs to be a mechanically heavy RPG. Unlike previous Elder Scrolls games, which have been gradually escalating in levels of popularity, Skyrim was what we refer to as a cultural touchstone, and pierced the...
Real quick, before he gets into Skyrim, I do think that this is an important point, which is that Bethesda they haven't for like 20 years. They don't really make role-playing games. They make adventure games, and they're good at that. And they're good at building like worlds you want to explore. But they're not really RPGs. And I actually have a theory that maybe part of the reason why when Bethesda reveals something and the game finally comes out and people test it against what they were hoping for, they find it lacking. I think part of that is because people love Bethesda games as they remember them, but not always for what they are. Like, a lot of people think back to Fallout 3 or Skyrim, and they have very, very fond memories of the roleplay and exploration or anything, which were great in their time. But by modern standards, after we've gotten tastes of other RPGs that really executed on it very, very well, that sort of retroactively tainted our memory of that, and we look at it through rose-tinted glasses. We remember Fallout 3's story as being much more compelling than it was. We remember Skyrim's world being a lot bigger than it actually was, and there being a lot more maybe emotional weight to some of the things you found. But then when you replay it, you're like, oh, I mean, barring and setting aside nostalgia just for its own sake, it's not quite what I remembered. Like, I forgot that it only took me 10 minutes to become the head of the College of Winterhold. Like, I kind of spaced that. It's just kind of made me space it. So I think that that's a component of it, which is just that people look back on these games with rose-tinted glasses and then they find the new one lacking, even though it was never even probably that possible that we were going to get anything that deep, with the new game. And because I do think that there's this disconnect between what a huge component or a huge portion of the Bethesda Game Studios fan base wants and what they're actually capable of delivering, which they've alluded to a couple of times where, like, Emil says, we made the best game we knew how to make. And I think to a certain extent that's true. It's just not the game that the fans wanted,
The barrier of niche fandoms spilling into the general popular consciousness.
Yeah,
similar to how
huge.
World of Warcraft did for MMORPGs. MMORPGs having been a niche thing before World of Warcraft pierced that barrier and normal people started hearing about it. People who...
Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge thing to keep in mind. Skyrim was the first of these massive open world games that really pierced that broader cultural veil or barrier, whatever you want to call it. Similarly, Red Dead 2 did it, where you remember Red Dead 2 launched and you saw South Park episodes referencing it, where the police chief in South Park is putting on his hat and his coat and he sits back down to start a new game. Because his wife was playing without him and ruined his save file. That's how you know that you've made it mainstream. And whenever that happens with a game, it pierces that cultural veil, becomes mainstream. You're going to start to see a ton of clones and duplicates. And I mean, We've seen it with Dark Souls stuff, where Dark Souls and Elden Ring, we've seen tons of Souls-like games come out. That's its own genre now. And what sometimes happens is that the one that was first was groundbreaking for its time, but it inevitably falls behind the later ones that take lessons and learn from it and improve upon the formula. Rarely do you get one where like the person who did it first, or the company that did it first rather, they continue to be the best at it. I would argue you typically see that with FromSoft stuff where they just are at the top of their game, same with Rockstar. But in the case of Bethesda, I think that there's been other companies that have come and done the open world system and open world narrative adventure game much, much better.
Who had never heard of the series before. People who had never even played video games before started hearing about these titles through their friends, family, and coworkers. This is a level of cultural saturation that makes the focal point a touchstone that everyone can look back on and refer to. Being a cultural touchstone, it will forever be seen as an aspirational point, both from their users and to their corporate owners at Microsoft. While I quite enjoy Fallout 4, 76, and Starfield as dungeon crawlers, those games didn't catch on quite like Skyrim did. Many would refer to Skyrim as being lightning in a bottle, something that Bethesda has been unable to recapture since. Until recently, Bethesda has had no rival for Skyrim. Nobody was willing to put anything near into Bethesda's level of effort for building an open world sandbox. Even games adjacent to it, like Kingdoms of Amalur, for example, didn't really have the time to focus on their worlds nearly as much as Bethesda did. Even going into 4 and 76, their attention to detail in open worlds was unmatched. When rivals in the industry attempted to push the open world trend, they lacked the experience, and inevitably, empty and shallow reflections of what Bethesda was doing began to manifest. The open world trend became synonymous with boring content. That's because while Bethesda was only really doing good enough writing, good enough combat, good enough graphics, the open world design was the star of the show and fun to explore. Recently, however...
Yeah, isn't it kind of remarkable how in the age of Skyrim, open worlds were seen as like the cream of the crop? It's like you hear an open world and that was a selling point for a lot of people, because it was the idea of exploration, of endless possibilities, of finding all sorts of crazy stuff hidden behind corners and tucked underneath rugs. I don't know. And in just a matter of a few years, open world started to be something you'd kind of roll your eyes at. It became, as he said, synonymous with like low effort content, repetitive content, uninteresting content, which I would argue like Ubisoft was a major contributor to that. EA with like Dragon Age Inquisition certainly fell victim to it as well. But it's also a reflection of the time. There was the interview recently with the game director for Assassin's Creed 3, and it was fascinating because back at the time when Assassin's Creed 3 launched in like 2012, you have to remember where we were. We were at a point where secondhand game sales were becoming such a frustration for major console manufacturers and publishers that Xbox was pressured by publishers and then also their own internal metrics into getting rid of used game sales. So they announced the Xbox One and said there were going to be no secondhand copies of games. Or if there was going to be all sorts of hoops you have to jump through to transfer ownership from one user to another. Because they didn't want you to buy a game for $60 and then sell it to your friend for $5, or go to GameStop, sell it for $45, and then GameStop sells it for $50 to somebody else. And then the publisher didn't get any amount of money for the second copy. And so they tried to strong arm it. And that didn't end too well for them. But interestingly, what Ubisoft did to combat that and the secondhand market was that they found if they increased the length of their games significantly, they could end up with players keeping games for longer. And therefore, if the game reviewed well or people thought it was interesting or word of mouth was good, they would then go and just buy it new because there weren't enough used copies to actually get your hands on because people were still playing it. So the director of Assassin's Creed 3 said that at the time, their push was to make their games longer so that they would drive up playtime and therefore players would be less likely to sell it secondhand. So that any copies that would move would be new copies that the money would go to the publisher, which is kind of low-key brilliant. Makes sense. I verified this. I was talking with somebody who worked at Ubisoft at the time, actually, on the recent Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 trip. He used to work in Ubisoft Publishing at the time. And he verified. He's like, yep, that's why the big push for open worlds being massive and huge, Ubisoft open worlds being massive and huge, that was to combat secondhand sales. Yep. I was like, Oh, well, there you go. And I think that that was reflected with EA, with Dragon Age Inquisition, which won Game of the Year in 2014, which even furthered the desire to replicate that. A lot of studios were like, look to that for inspiration. They have 100 hours of content. And they started pumping that out. And so it's certainly a component of it. But it is fascinating to just consider that not that long before, open worlds were synonymous with like interesting, captivating immersion and adventure. And then in just a few years, that was literally flipped 180 degrees. And it was considered like boring, repetitive, bland, soulless content.
Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon has been fully released, and Ardenfall is approaching an early access release. Games like Elden Ring, despite being panned by some of the classic Souls fans, were well received by the masses as an open world game. In other words, good open world games are proven to be possible outside of the Bethesda space, but their success really hinges on them getting enough marketing, enough to compete with a Bethesda game. Yes, just making a good game isn't enough to be a smash hit these days. You have to either be insanely lucky to the point where the industry has no idea how to replicate it, or you brute force it with a huge marketing budget, which is what Microsoft does. Unfortunately, in a post-open world video game industry, Starfield has failed to garner the kind of attention and player base to make it anywhere resembling a cultural touchstone. The most prominent meme about the game isn't even from the game. It's a bald man screaming about pronouns. And
it is true. That is like the main meme I've seen from it, which unfortunately nowadays, this is the world we live in. Memes are usually a pretty good indication of what like broader culture's takeaway is from what you put out. Like, you remember when Helldivers 2 launched, everybody was memeing and joking about liberty, for the love of liberty, as his leg is getting blown off. There were memes about the game that were genuinely hilarious. They were using that sound of the guy, like two Helldivers talking to each other. What are you gonna do after the war? After we spread democracy? He's like, I'm gonna go back to my mama and I'm gonna share my journeys with her. And then he gets shot by, you know, a filthy wireback clanker. And he drops dead and you just hear the screams. And those types of memes went viral. And that's what people remember Helldivers for, you know, if they're not still playing it, which a lot of people still are. Even like with Baldur's Gate 3, there were all sorts of memes about, you know, sex with bears and some of those early stories that went viral about the game's writing and just the sheer variety of consequence and things that you could see. It was really, really interesting. But in the case of Starfield, like, what's the meme? What's the cultural impact? There's not a lot. Load screens. The meme is kind of now load screens constantly. Like, I guess not exactly what you'd want.
it's a shame because underneath a bad main quest and a lack of a good gameplay loop linking its systems, there are some pretty nice character writing moments and some delightful dungeon design. We know what Starfield lacks most, however, and that is the heart and soul that makes every other modern Bethesda game in the Oblivion post-era work, and that's a connected open world. Starfield has segmented open worlds, and not a whole lot stand out in each one of them. Now that Microsoft owns Bethesda, and Starfield was unfortunately a cultural flop, Elder Scrolls 6 is perhaps the last chance the current team at Bethesda Game Studios in its current form.
I can't with the mods for the idle animations, just the... These are the people you need to make happy, developers, okay? You should cherish and treasure this, okay? Don't judge us. It's crazy. I do think it is interesting. I did see another comment from somebody on one of our Starfield videos where they were saying, actually, I think Starfield is the ultimate dungeon crawling game. And then all caps, let me explain before you downvote. And he made a compelling case, honestly. Basically, his argument was that dungeons, as defined in most games, are like small areas that may be procedurally generated or even hand-built, but they're smaller areas for you to explore with individual encounters, treasures, points of interest, things like that to find. You go, you complete them, and you rarely need to return to them once you've already cleared them, if ever. And he argued that each individual loading zone on every single planet in Starfield constituted its own dungeon. So he was basically arguing that Starfield has basically endless dungeons, each unique and engaging and interesting because they all have different stuff to find. And I was like, you know, like, I think technically you're right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The problem is it's all just repeated content, you know, and a lot of those dungeons are you just like running endlessly through a field of rocks trying to get to a POI only to realize it's the same one you've seen 15 times or it's empty, you know, like, so I think you got me on a technicality, but it doesn't mean that the dungeon is good, you know, because that's a separate question. But I was like, honestly, if you're literally just saying it has one of the most endless or one of the most open-ended dungeon crawling experiences in a modern game, I do think technically that's right. Probably. Yes, but actually no. Yeah, kind of like that, Sneaky Pickle, exactly. Yeah, but no.
As it creating something that will truly stand the test of time like Skyrim has. I successfully predicted Fallout 76 years before it came out because I understood ZeniMax Media at the time. I didn't believe the Oblivion remaster was real because it wasn't like ZeniMax Media to outsource anything Elder Scrolls to an external company. They would usually establish or acquire a studio and label it as a spin-off to Bethesda Game Studios and call it a day. Microsoft, however, is a different beast, and as the Oblivion remaster has proven, I cannot predict what they are going to do. The reason I'm relatively sure Elder Scrolls 6 is going to rely on paid modding is how Fallout 4, Skyrim, and Starfield are all utilizing the Microsoft Partner Center, being ham-fisted into its current single-player games.
But even that, you can't just pass it off totally to Microsoft because the leaked slides from like 2021 before the deal went through, well, I guess it was technically right about that time, but right about the time where all of this was happening, the acquisition, because I think the acquisition was right around that time. When did Microsoft acquire ZeniMax? March of 21 is when it officially closed. Okay. Microsoft Gaming took it over. Okay. So it was technically March of 2021. In September they entered into the agreement to buy them, but it closed in March of 2021. But right around that time, we had slides that later leaked and came out as a result of the FTC hearings for Activision Blizzard. And some of those slides and stuff were indicating, unless I'm misremembering timelines, the intention to do the Fallout 3 remake and the Oblivion remaster remake. So I think a lot of this was in the works even before or very, very, very early on the Microsoft acquisition and acquiring of them. But again, timelines could be messy. So I could be wrong, could very much be wrong. Because it could change if like those slides were dated July of 2021, then that could just suggest that Microsoft came in and said, you're doing this. So I will just leave it there. I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure this is going to happen with Elder Scrolls 6 as well. That said, I have it on good authority that paid mods, as they are displayed, unless this has been fixed, their numbers are greatly exaggerated. I'm told it's not counting first-time downloads only, but rather impressions. That is to say, every time an attempted download happens, incomplete or repeat. In other words, people deactivate, delete, then reactivate their mods, delete their entire mod lists, or reinstall the game, and re-download everything. All of that will count as an extra download every single time. So the numbers of paid mod downloads are likely greatly inflated over the number of actual purchases. Still, some recurrent income for Microsoft is better than none in their eyes. So I'm confident paid mods will play a part in Elder Scrolls 6. After purchasing ZeniMax Media and acquiring Bethesda, I'm certain Microsoft was afraid of killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. From their perspective, I don't think Starfield was as much of a golden egg as they profess with their Game Pass subscriptions. Game Pass took a dip after the initial wave of Starfield players, despite the fact it was marketed by Todd Howard as something that was supposed to be played for years. I suspect a correct course there'll be directives from Microsoft this time around, and what's to follow is pure speculation since, as I mentioned before, I can't accurately predict what Microsoft is going to do next. So again, I think that they are going to discard a number of ideas from Starfield and focus on making the game as close to Skyrim as possible, set in a new...
This is where we get into the interesting bit. What are their takeaways from Starfield, and what will change based on like that for Elder Scrolls 6? I think paid mods will continue to be a massive focus. So I'm not sure if he's suggesting that they are going to step back from those a little bit because the numbers are inflated. I think that's a huge component of the monetization. So I think that that's just going to be doubled down on even further. I think if anything, they probably will have even more content ready to go, because I think they weren't satisfied with the flow of content in the paid mods that came shortly after the game's launch. I think they want to like every week have a new quest available, a new weapon available that they're just cutting from the base game and selling back to you. But that's what they're going to do, I think. Beyond that, in terms of a broader, more general design philosophy, there's kind of two options as far as I can tell. Either they just make Skyrim 2, which I think is probably the most likely. The alternative is that they do Starfield, but with swords. And I maybe it's a melding of the two. Typically, though, what Bethesda has done for a very long time is that they just go and they start with like what they've built out. So they start with like this in 2006, and then with 2008 with Fallout 3, they add on a little bit more, and then in 2011 with Skyrim, they have a little bit more that they've added on to it. And then we get Fallout 4 and they add in new like cinematic camera stuff, and they have voice protagonists, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. Base building, you know. Fallout 76, they expand base building and add online multiplayer as a component. Doesn't start well, but it eventually catches its stride. With Starfield, they add on even more with procedurally generated content. And it basically has everything that the previous games had, except maybe the online content. Who knows if they change that eventually. But they add on more to it and build upon it. And then we get to Elder Scrolls 6. And what is it going to do? I personally don't think they're going to start cutting out components of like the procedural stuff. I don't think they're going to cut out like base building and some of these things that were added in previous games. I think all of that will still be there. I think they're going to have like build your own castle. I think like you're going to customize your own little castle fortress, just like in Fallout 4, and just like the ship building in Starfield. I think it'll work the same way. I wouldn't be surprised if there's also an actual ship for you to customize, because if you remember, of course, in the announcement trailer, they showed the coastline, and I think, you know, they could of course pivot off of it and go somewhere else, but or just not give you access to the coastline. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if it's like, hey, yeah, you get access to a ship and then you can use it to fast travel along the coast. Otherwise, maybe, you know, they swing the total opposite way. It could genuinely be really interesting if they swing completely opposite after Starfield and they're like, yeah, no more fast travel in the traditional sense. I would like to see them do the KCD2 thing, where if you want to fast travel, it's basically done in real time, where the player character is actually traveling through the world. There's opportunities for bandits to jump you, for individual encounters and things that, you know, could start side quests. It actually cycles the day-night cycle, and it would technically cover up the load screen, but I think that could be a really cool way to do it. And that could be an interesting way that they pivot off of the narrative over load screens. If they're like, yeah, no load screens except if you're fast traveling from your ship. And even then they could do the thing where the camera pulls out to a sky view. It kind of transitions to a map, and then it shows the icon of the ship sailing up the coast as it loads, and then it fades out and you're back down into it. All sorts of stuff they could do, but that would be a good way to pivot from the narrative. I also think it's no coincidence that this is in frame precisely where you see it, as the camera pans forward. I think that this is the castle that you're going to customize. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's like the one clear structure except for the city in the distance. I think it's no coincidence that this is the one structure you can clearly make out in this trailer. I think that this is the castle you're going to get access to, and then all of the base building, fort building stuff that they built with Fallout 76, Fallout 4, and even Starfield. I think all of that is going to take place here. It's not going to look exactly the same, but I think that that's what they're trying to signal. Because Todd mentioned that they had the design doc, the one page for Elder Scrolls 6 years and years ago. And he said with each and every Elder Scrolls game, they want to take something and have like, what's the thing about that game? What's the big thing? With like Oblivion, it was fidelity. They wanted the forests to look photorealistic, and they wanted it to be like the most beautiful open world game anybody had ever seen. And with Skyrim, they wanted it to be all about the dragons. That was the focus. What's the focus for Elder Scrolls 6? Castles. I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. But let's hear, continuing on with the video, what Zarek thinks is most likely.
Location, while focusing on some sort of standout element that is going to attempt to what Microsoft is going to do next. So again, I think that they are going to discard a number of ideas from Starfield and focus on making the game as close to Skyrim as possible, set in a new location, while focusing on some sort of standout element that is going to attempt to elevate it past Skyrim. Be that element graphics, sounds, combat, some sort of standout game mechanic. I have no idea.
Castle.
But my theory is that because Skyrim was the most successful single-player Elder Scrolls game of all time, they will focus hard on creating a new Skyrim. When people use the term Skyrim 2, regardless of how that may bug some people, I don't think it's too far off from reality. Skyrim 2, in a new province, I would likely enjoy it greatly, but I admit a good chunk of my enjoyment in Skyrim does come from modding, and it's unlikely I will ever play Skyrim without Legacy of the Dragonborn again. But that's coming from thousands of hours of gameplay. I suspect that unless they make some kind of major misstep, Elder Scrolls 6 will probably be thoroughly enjoyable for the asking price for at least a couple hundred hours. We'll have to revisit that last point, asking price, when the game is actually up for sale at storefronts, because wild things are happening in the industry when it comes to price. That said, despite me telling you I will enjoy Elder Scrolls 6 most likely, I can tell you that modded Elder Scrolls 2, Daggerfall, is my favorite game in the series. If I had to pick strictly from vanilla, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is the one I would say is my favorite. But I think we're well past expecting Bethesda to create something that does much more than reference the classics. Daggerfall's design is incompatible with what people value from modern Bethesda games, and Morrowind was created by a supergroup of designers who were, for the most part, good or at least decent writers first, and then game designers second. We will probably never see that team, that kind of team, again. So two roads lay before us. The less likely one, where Bethesda is allowed to be as ambitious as they were with Starfield, and doing so potentially gamble the future of the Elder Scrolls franchise on an experimental game in an attempt to Hail Mary another cultural touchstone like Skyrim, or the far more likely road that leads us to Skyrim 2 in a new region. But hey, these are just guesses. As I mentioned, I have no reliable way of knowing what Microsoft is going to do. I've heard from former Microsoft employees, internally speaking, that Microsoft's upper leadership is cultish and weird. And that would track with why I can't seem to get a beat on what they're going to do next. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Elder Scrolls 6 pans out. But if you want my incredibly stupid off-the-wall prediction...
Okay, wait. I'm ready. What's it going to be? I'm so ready. I'm excited. Zarek, good to see you. Good to see you in chat live with us. Skyrim's original plot was going to be about Uriel Spittum and the fifth coming back, I can't read, the fifth coming back from the active year with an army of dragons to retake Tamriel for his dynasty. That was scrapped, but dragons remained. Yeah. Because that sounds cool. Dragons like flying around and like you can fight them. That's cool too. Not quite as cool as that, but you know. That's kind of the pattern with a lot of this, is that it starts off wow, and then okay. Like that's where you end up almost every single time.
The Red Guards of Hammerfell are currently in a civil war between two factions, the Crowns and the Forebearers. The Crowns want Hammerfell independent, and the Forebearers wish to return to the Empire. But then, suddenly, during this civil war, a great cataclysm occurs. Some ancient evil arises. Is it the sinistral elves from Redguard myth? Is it the Malmer? Is it Rada al-Saran rising from the dead? Is it a brand new enemy? I have no idea. But there's one they fear.
It's dragons. It's just dragons again.
Ordained by the Redguard god of the Force to make way for their people, known as the Hunding. This hero is the sword singer of legend. Hold your power button to execute a 3-note sword song attack. That was just me being silly. Those are my silly off-the-wall predictions that I don't think are going to happen. Just thought I'd throw that out there for some people. Get excited. My only real hope is that they move Emil Pagliarulo away from writing the main quest and bring in some fresh blood. Emil is a good level designer. The character writers they brought in for Starfield's companion loyalty missions seem to be better than him, and I'd like to see what they could do with the main plot. With that out of the way, I think it's time to...
I agree. It just needs fresh blood. Like it just does. And I think that there's just, like, let's even just remove it from any sort of emotional discussion or any sort of clips or keynote speeches that have been made. Like, if we just break it down, there is a consensus among Elder Scrolls fans, among Fallout fans, Starfield fan, that the writing is lacking. It just is. Like, everybody kind of agrees on this. Whether you really loved Fallout 4 or even if you loved Fallout 76 or whatever, the common thread is that the writing is lacking. And so at some point, I think you just have to go based off of the results and say, okay, well, if everybody agrees on this, let's deal with that. It's why, to their credit, after Dragon Age the Veilguard launched, they cleaned house. Like, literally not a single one of the writers that worked on that game is still at BioWare. Now, to be fair, it sounds like basically nobody's going to be at BioWare probably fairly soon, because it sounds like they're going to close it. We'll see if they do or not under new ownership. That won't happen, though, until later next year when the deal closes, if it does, but it probably does. But I think pretty clearly, like, the writing is a point people have found lacking, and literally the correlation is not causation, certainly, but I think it's fair to bring up just the reality that as Emil's standing within the studio has risen and he's gotten promoted, the quality has continued to drop, specifically with the writing, which is what he is in charge of. Correlation is not causation. Could be unrelated. But definitely is, I think it warrants looking into. You know, like, I think it's worth investigating a little bit. Emil, Destroyer of Worlds. That makes him sound pretty cool, honestly. And I do want to say this, like, Emil is very talented with many, many things. He's the guy that Todd was like, hey, can you come up with some sort of chant using one of the in-game languages or something? And like, we just want it to be like the lyrics that are sung when they're doing the chant. And he went off, worked on it, and came back with the chant that he had just like written. Let me see. Maybe I can actually find it. The Making of Skyrim. Is this it? Did I just like... Hold on.
And heated up some...
Yep, this is it. This is literally
I found recordings of Beowulf in Old English. That gave me sort of the overall feel.
As the story goes, he kind of sat on it for a while and went home one weekend and heated up some mead and wrote the thing. He came in on Monday, there it is, and it was like, oh my gosh, this actually works.
That's cool.
Each shout has 3 components. There are 3 words. And so it becomes like, okay, I say one word, you know, foos, and then ro, and da. And so when you're doing this as a gameplay device, it's like, it has to all meld together, like, foos, ro, da.
When you say, foos, ro, da, like that, that's when the big clap.
What happens if you say it really with like bad pronunciation? Is it like diagonally? Does it do the opposite? There's probably a lore answer to that. But he is very talented. Like, that is cool. That is genuinely not something most people could do, is come up with this, like, at this point, iconic thing that he just built from scratch, basically. That is genuinely really, really cool. But that does not mean that therefore he's good at everything, you know? And I think part of one of the important things to be able to do as a leader and as a designer, really anybody in any creative pursuit, is to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, you know? And there's times where you need to step up and or step back, I guess, and realize that you're not good at that, and that's okay. But you're gonna let other people who are good at that step in and do it. If I were Emil and I was in charge of all of this, I would go out and I'd seek out people that are really, really good at what they do. You know, I'd seek out some really talented people, and maybe put them in positions in charge of writing and supervising, at the very least, some of that. And interestingly, they did hire somebody that worked at BioWare. So John Dumbrow, Dumbro, has joined BGS as a senior quest designer. If you notice, he worked on Dragon Age The Veilguard until August of 2023. He was senior writer and narrative designer on Veilguard. Then he worked on Ghost of Yotei for 2 years, finished in July of this year. So probably right as they finished up anything he would have to work on. And then he moved over to work at BGS starting in August. So he's been there for just a few months. Interestingly, though, and to be very fair, there are lots of memes with Dragon Age Veilguard. Okay, we've all heard them. We all know them. There's the jokes write themselves. But if you actually look at his track record, it actually is, I think, encouraging. You see, he was the senior writer and narrative designer on Dragon Age Veilguard. Okay. He wrote the Davrin story arc, including all missions and related character relationship and romance scenes, including Asan, which was one of the few good things in the story. That's not saying a whole lot because the writing was kind of ass, but okay, that's actually... So he wrote one of the good things. He wrote the Siege of Weishaupt mission, which was genuinely like one of the coolest missions in the entire game. It was one of the like 3 things they showed us at the preview event that actually got us excited. So he wrote like probably the coolest mission in the game. Okay. The initial writing on the Veil Jumper storyline and quests before, they kind of went to multiplayer and then went back to single player. And then also designed the Lighthouse and Player Hub narrative planning and design, which also was kind of cool. It had the lanterns to indicate when they had another story beat to explore and expand on. And prior to that, he did some narrative design on Anthem, co-lead writer on Mass Effect Andromeda. He supervised a team of 7 writers for the overall story, coordinated cinematics, level design, gameplay, VO, performance capture, audio. That was just kind of a bit of a mess, though. And prior to that, he worked as a writer at Telltale. Now, we can poke holes in all of this, be like, oh, well, those episodes that he worked on Telltale those were bad. Or the work he did on Dragon Age can be debated. Maybe you liked the Weishaupt mission. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you liked the Davrin story arc. Maybe you didn't. But I'd say that his work I find at least interesting, whether I like it or not. There's parts of it I like, parts of it I don't, but it's at least interesting. Whereas most of Emil's writing is just so flaccid. There's not much there. It's just a wet, limp fish on the table. I want something there. I want something. And I feel like with ML, it's always very safe. It's very bland. It's very plain. There's just not a lot to work with. So at least there's something there. And I think it's interesting because historically, like BGS has not done a lot of hiring of big names from other well-known studios. They tend to hire people in lower positions and promote them from within and kind of train them up in the ways of Bethesda. And that's historically how they've done it. Their average tenure is something insane like 10 years, which is wild in this day and age to have an average tenure that high. But that's how they typically do things. But with this, they actually hired a guy to come in, and he literally just worked on one of PlayStation's biggest IP, and they're bringing him in to work as a senior quest designer. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. And after playing Ghost of Yotei, I will say, I find it very interesting that they're bringing him in for Elder Scrolls. Because if you've played Ghost of Yotei and you think, okay, the guy responsible for the writing and like the quest design and stuff in Ghost of Yotei, he's going to be in charge for Elder Scrolls 6. I think it will be a very different vibe. I think they're going for something much more gritty. Much more gritty. If we're going off of Ghost of Yotei compared to like Dragon Age. But we'll see. Either way, it's going to be very, very interesting. Very interesting. Let's close this out. Take it away, Zarek.
Call this video complete. I didn't like my fixing Starfield Part 2, so I threw it out twice. And I made this video instead because I realized that, in fact, I threw out a whole video twice. I've got a fair number more things to talk about, but we'll see how the rest of this year treats us. Question to everyone. assuming Elder Scrolls 6
I just love the casual grabbing of a shark, and just don't mention it. Just grab the shark.
does take place in Hammerfell, what would you want the main plot to be? An overwhelming number of people that I have asked have basically said Red Guards versus Thalmor, which isn't a bad premise. I just don't like the Thalmor as they currently stand. I feel that they could be developed a lot more than they are now. Still, what is your ideal Elder Scrolls 6 plotline? What would you want your character to do running around Tamriel? I'll be looking at your answers in a video or two down the line. Either way.
I think what I would have them do, I think you can start really simple, honestly. You don't need to do anything too expansive. I think you just need to... I think they just need to build it out in a way where there's a little bit more dynamism, where it's not... I know it's a trope of like the early 20 teens where it's just like the player is basically God, you know, can do anything and everything. But I would rather explore an archetype for the player character where they start without any sort of special magical powers. Like one of the things I love about New Vegas, for example, is that you literally are starting in a grave in the ground, and you go and you're like starting from about as scratch as you possibly could be. And then it builds on it, and you have to completely rebuild not just your capabilities, but all of your possessions and everything else. You're standing within the community. You have no connections with other people. People you'll speak to will notice you're the courier and be like, oh, thought you're back. Okay. You know, they'll make comments like that. But I think with Elder Scrolls, they tend to like to have a special hook, a special element. But I'd rather if they just literally put you in this interesting world and we're like, figure it out. Find your place in this world. It's not been predestined for you. But I know some people will disagree with that and rather have super special powers only specifically given to the player character. But other than that, I'm very open. It's just, again, I think a lot of it's going to start from tone. They have a lot more lore to work with in Elder Scrolls compared, of course, to starting from scratch with Starfield. So that's going to be really, really interesting. But there's a lot of things that they could do. I'm just so curious. I don't need a world savior story. Yeah, well, it's kind of like sometimes Elder Scrolls stuff can kind of turn into your stereotypical D&D campaign where it's like, bad guy wants to destroy the world, you must stop him, and that's about the extent of it. And there's not a lot more depth beyond that. But maybe I'm naive for this, but I'm a firm believer that you can make almost any story compelling, no matter how simplistic it is, because it's more about the technique of the story and how it's presented to people. And you can add in context to make it more complicated. You can start with a really simple narrative that's very, very straightforward, like bad guy wants to destroy the world, you stop him. And you can make it interesting by adding nuance, by adding extra wrinkles that weren't there before, different motivations, this backstory, this over here, this faction that's competing in this way. This faction that wants to destroy it for a different reason. Like there's all sorts of things you can do, even if you start with a very, very simplistic premise. So, but that's where like the talent of the writers comes in, because it's not just the premise, it's about the execution of the premise and all of the extra set dressing and things that make it, if you, a cooking analogy, it's like you can make an amazing dish with chicken. You can also make an incredibly boring meal with chicken. You know, it's about the seasoning. It's about the zest. It's about everything else. That's how you do it. Power fantasy is good, but power fantasy can be done poorly, like with Skyrim. I agree. And I think it's also the temptation is, and it kind of follows in line with what Emil expressed in that talk, which is that players just want to be a super powerful murder goblin and they want to just march around killing everybody. So don't put too much effort into the NPCs because we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it can water it down a ton. Power fantasies, it certainly can be very interesting. I mean, you could even say that like The Witcher 3 with Geralt's powers is sort of a power fantasy because there's a huge power disparity between Geralt and your average bandit, for example. But they add complexity to that where he's fighting like monsters that have a power disparity between Geralt and him, you know? So like, it's again, not just the initial point. It's like the complexity of it, how you build upon it. It's hard to mess up chicken. Oh, Shadow Zero. Oh, you poor soul. I had a chicken salad that was made with like a vegan, no calorie, no carb mayo. And like, I don't even know. It was other stuff. It was like a vegan dish. And I remember they said also like, so vegan mayo, they said vegan pickles, which I thought pickles were vegan. Like, what part of animal byproducts are in pickles? I don't, like, what? Okay. It's like, dude, there's one time we were over at, I love Nikki's family. They're all wonderful. But dude, we were one time over and having dinner with one of her relatives, and her relative came out with organic, non-GMO, vegan salt. I was like, they just put all the buzzwords on that package, didn't they? What do you mean vegan salt? Like, what? It's the most insane thing. I was like cracking up while we're sitting at the table looking at this thing, and I just could not believe it. But I was like, I think there's actually people out there who are like, ooh, vegan. I think vegan's healthy. So I'm going to buy this. And I'm sure it was probably like $15 for this tiny little thing. But because it's vegan salt, that means it's better. You know, it was so insane to me. All of it's technically true. Yeah, there's nothing false about that packaging. It all is accurate. It's just insane because you know it's the exact same salt as the package next to it. Nothing's different. But anyway. Phenomenal video, Zarek. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, get over there, subscribe. We got to get him to 100K. We got to do that. We got to do that. Phenomenal video. And like I said at the top, people who are like, there's often a lot of cope that can go on with this stuff where it's like you guys are critiquing Bethesda or you are not super stoked on Starfield. Therefore, like you're a fake fan, or if you didn't love Fallout 4, you're a fake fan, or you didn't like Skyrim, you're a fake fan. And I think it's not helpful to dismiss critique and criticism, because ultimately, if all you want is your like echo chamber, safe space bubble, then all you're ever going to make is exactly what you made before. And you're never going to actually like change or evolve and shift and make improvements. And that's been my concern from the very, very start with all of it, is that I feel as though there is no real, like there's no appreciation of the fans' critiques beyond the stuff that they want to agree with from the outset. And so I'm just hoping that they can appreciate it, learn from it, and actually make changes. Because like I said, I think there is a way in which they could take the feedback from Starfield and actually have actionable improvements for Elder Scrolls 6. Imagine if they came out with Elder Scrolls 6 and they're like, so with Starfield, we heard you. No load screens during exploration at all. And it's sort of a loophole. And it's like, well, it's because fast travel now takes place in real time. So the map goes out to an overhead view and then it kind of plays out very, very quickly in a sped up way like KCD2. So it's kind of covering up a load screen. Maybe whenever you go into a dungeon, they do sort of a Batman Arkham Asylum thing where the camera angles up and then you walk through the door and then it kind of transitions into the dungeon or whatever they would do. I understand the creation engine can't do fully seamless open world exploration, but there's ways that they could sort of get away on a technicality. But if they were to actually respond to the criticism and critiques, I think there would be a huge shift in the narrative. But so far I've seen no indication that they think anything is wrong at all. And it's too bad, because I think it means we're probably going to get the exact same thing, but next time. And that's just too bad. Yes, I did just put the link into both chats. So get over there, get subscribed, show them some love. Great video. And again, it's nice to see somebody who really, really knows what they're talking about break this down. So phenomenal video. Great. Yeah, The Elder Scrolls 6 is a home run. It's kind of the home run if Bethesda F's this up. Oh, man. I mean, I hope they don't. I hope they don't. I think we're all braced for it. Either way, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be captivating, dare I say. You know? Keaton, thank you for the 5. If you were a Fable devs, would you be nervous at all about the Xbox news? Not on Fable. Fable apparently is pretty far along and was very, very expensive so far. So I'm not too worried about that because I think that they've sunk enough money into it at this point that they are not going to scrap it or anything.
Alex Hakopian donated $10 through Super Chat. Hey Luke, I know we are still months away, but what are your plans in terms of streaming and your YouTube content during the week GTA 6 comes out next May?
Thank you for the 10. I think realistically, we're just going to have probably a few videos on GTA. I don't expect any sort of like early access, any sort of review codes or anything. I don't think anybody should frankly expect that, whether you are a content creator or outlet. I would just plan that you're not going to get one. I think they'll be very selective. But I imagine when it launches, everybody and their mother is going to be playing it. I would like to do some videos breaking down some like of the open world design stuff. I think that could be really interesting. But I do think there's going to be a component of it where maybe video views on the game are not as high as you would think, because there's some games when everybody agrees that they're going to play it and knows that they want it, the videos don't actually do particularly well because everybody knows they're going to play it. They don't need to be convinced. And so any videos that they watch on it are just going to include spoilers, you know? It's not even worth risking, you know? So I think we will talk about it. We'll make videos. There's going to be other games coming out around that time, but it's going to be a huge topic for sure. No way it releases in May. It might not. I spoke to somebody who used to work at Rockstar, or I'm sorry, at Take-Two, and so he knows a lot of the guys at Rockstar. Like he's been in meetings with the people that decide the launch day. And I was talking to him a bit over a month ago, and he said, I know those guys. If they put a day on it, they're hitting it. And he was like, I'd bet a lot of money on the May date. And I don't know those people. I don't personally know that, but he was like locked in, super solid. No, it's coming in May. If they put a date on it, they're releasing it in May. Those guys, yeah. That was his attitude. Like it was just like saying, oh no, if he said that, yeah, no, I know those guys. Nope, that's definitely happening. So I think they didn't put a day on it. I mean, they literally did. It's May 26th, I think. So I'm of the mind that they could delay it, and I think, you know, it would not be shocking at all. But I've spoken to people who know those guys and are very, very confident. They just said May. No, they put a day on it, dude. GTA 6 trailer 2. Actually, I typed in 23. Can you imagine? Voila. May 26th. May 26th. That's probably going to be copyrighted music. So, like, they locked it in. They locked it in. Captured on PS5. Apparently base PS5 too. So, Again, I don't know the Rockstar guys. I've never spoken to the guys that, you know, this guy talked to. But he was very confident. He's like, if they said May 26th, then they're doing it. Oh, Anthony, you're fine. You're fine. I get stuff wrong all the time, and I do this for a living. You know? So don't stress it. Don't stress it. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Kriegsters, thank you for the 2. Every game listed that guy worked on are not good. I'd say there were major problems with all of them. His defense would be that Mass Effect Andromeda did not fail because of the quest writing or anything. It failed because of massive technical issues. There were some memeable lines in there. My face is tired, but I don't know if that's something he worked on. And then the Ghost of Yote, I think, is very good. But Dragon Age, you guys know what I think about Dragon Age Veilguard. So, but the stuff he worked on in Dragon Age Veilguard are some of the few parts I did like. So it's just different, you know? I can see why a lot of people would immediately dismiss it and be like, oh God, here we go. But I also think that might be overly dismissive. Let's see. Do you think Microsoft will be in trouble because of GTA 6? No, I think they're relying on it boosting numbers, because what's going to happen is GTA 6 is going to launch. People are going to go out to stores to buy consoles, because there's a lot of people out there who will play GTA 6 who have never upgraded to this generation. And so they're going to go out to the store to buy a console to play GTA 6 on. And I would imagine the PlayStations will sell out first. But when they've sold out, a lot of people are going to choose to go with the Xbox instead. Because again, get out of like your intense gamer bubble. Think of the casual gamer that just saw GTA 6 looks awesome. He's like, oh, I remember playing GTA 5 back when I was, 12, 13 years ago. When I was 13, 14, 15 years old. I haven't played on a console in years. Oh, I remember having an Xbox. Yeah, I'll get the Xbox. That's how it's going to work for a lot of these guys. And I think that's why they're also raising prices, because they know that too. But I do think that's going to be a big component of it. That's assuming they can keep it in stock. Not in the sense that they're going to sell out, but in the sense that like Costco stopped selling it. They literally took it off the shelves. So we'll see. $700 Xbox over the $500 PS5. Well, to be fair, the most expensive Xbox is the 2 terabyte version. I think that they're also hoping people will buy like Series S's and Series X base models and stuff. And that's all. It's all part of the plan. I think so. Xbox is probably very excited for GTA 6, I think. Yeah. Do you think there'll be parity between GTA 6 across PS5 and PS5 Pro? As of right now, it seems like it. There might be some like thing that PlayStation can do where they can uncap the frame rate or something like that on their end. I don't know, but I've heard nothing so far that would indicate that there's evidence that they will have different versions. So nothing to go off of right now. Anyway. So fam, I'm going to call it there because I have to go and pick up desserts for a little birthday party get together thing we're going to do tonight. So thank you all for hanging out with me and chilling. We are going to have the podcast up and running starting next week again. That's going to be awesome. Looking forward to that. And we should have all sorts of other things to talk about on Friday when we come back with another wonderful stream. Okay. It's going to be awesome. Live stream the birthday party. We live stream one birth and now this happens. That's not going to make sense if you didn't see the start of the stream. Sorry. Yes, there's a lady on Twitch right now live streaming her childbirth. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. You guys are wonderful. Go subscribe to Zark and yeah, thanks. Love you all. Bye.